was killed in the incident. She was a valued member of the City Housing Commission and of our community. She truly will be missed. Other cyclists, as Julie mentioned, are still in the hospital with serious injuries. I don't know that the city could have done anything to prevent a driver from running a red light. But that said, it certainly has gotten the attention of the community and the city council about the need to do everything that we can to address bicycle and pedestrian safety. It actually came up in the Metro Plan meeting just this morning at 10 o'clock. You also might like to know that a candlelight vigil will be held at Wheeler Park tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. to honor Joanna. So thank you, Julie. And this is a sad day.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. Are there other members of the public that would like to address the commission for items that are not on the agenda? And I do see one comment here. Just a moment while it's loading. Councilmember Shimoni, you would like to submit a public comment? And welcome, Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you. It's really good to be here with you. And I just wanted to thank Councilmember McCarthy for his words. Yeah, this is a very difficult time, but I just wanted to express gratitude to each of you on this commission for your work with the city on these important topics, and that I'm very much looking forward to your conversation today and the work ahead. As Councilmember McCarthy said, there's a lot of potential for what we as a city can do in hopefully a foreseeable future, and I am excited about working on those things with council and with all of you. So I just want to say hi. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here with you, and yeah, rest in peace, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. I really appreciate you joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to have you. Are there other members of the public that would like to address the commission? All right. Hearing none, we will close public comment and approval of minutes. There are none. Jeff Bauman has provided the link for the recordings for these commission meetings for reference as you'd like. So with that, I would like to move to agenda item 2, new business. And this is regarding city council presentation. We have an opportunity to present to city council in a special work session on June 22nd. We have 30 to 45 minutes to present, and we're talking about, or I've been thinking about talking towards things that we've been working on, things that we have been talking about, our important issues, and then also looking forward. So with that, on A, Jeff, do you have the outline that we've talked about as a starting point for discussion with the commission? So no formal action is required, but I want to hear from my fellow commissioners on the content of what we want to present to council, the format, and some of the key points and concerns that we get this great opportunity to communicate to city council on.
Pulling it up now.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay.
When Jeff first said that we had 30 to 45 minutes, I was like, oh gosh, that's a long time. And then really started thinking about the things that we've been talking about and working on. And now I'm thinking, oh gosh, how are we going to fit it all in 45 minutes? Thank you for zooming in. So this is a rough outline that I put together. This is not fixed, but I wanted to have a starting point for discussion with you. So I'll run through it, and then let's pick it apart. And I would like to hear from each commissioner your thoughts, recommendations. Okay. So the time I've put in parentheses, anticipated time I put in parentheses at the beginning of the bullet. So the first one, I just want to give a brief background and time served for our commission members. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes recognizing Council Member McCarthy, and now that he is the liaison from council and participating in all of our meetings, which has been fantastic. The third bullet was really this conversation and recognition about what has transpired and what the accident that occurred on Friday and things that may be underway, or the discussions that may happen if there's something that would be appropriate for us to address or to communicate. Fourth bullet, I would like to just briefly go through our charter and our general responsibilities. Fifth bullet, just some generals of what we've been working on. Last month, I believe there was a fair item that went in front of council. It did not move forward, but that fair item included the Presidio Gate update. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to speak to council and let them know what we've been working on with that gate. And I know Councilmember McCarthy, you did a great job of that at council, and we can provide some additional information and updates based on some of the work that's gone on since that time. But it kind of addressing some of the traffic calming in the neighborhoods and the studies that are underway. And then also mentioning the noise issue, because I believe that is also an item on council agenda related to a noise ordinance for mufflers. So just a brief highlight, and then going into the active transportation master plan. And this would be schedule and status of revisions, comment period, just a very brief update. And I would work with Martin to prepare that. And then giving a few minutes for each of our chairs of both the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and Bicycle Advisory Committee to talk about their work and some of the highlights of the work that they've done. And I think this is going to become even more of a conversation related to the comments last night at council and that fair item about bike and pedestrian safety funding. And then I thought we could take a few minutes looking forward. And Kate, Commissioner Morley, I was thinking of you in this discussion about the typical sections for residential areas that we've been talking about, and that Reed Miller has presented to us in previous commission meetings, and traffic calming in those residential neighborhoods. And this is coming right off of the heels of some of the community comments and some of the work that we've been doing with speeding and Mount Pleasant Country Club. And how are we hearing those things and taking action on those items, but then looking forward of what needs to change, what adjustments need to be in place. And then I was excited to hear that Metro Plan has selected a consultant for the updated regional transportation plan, and that's Burgess and Nipel. So congratulations to Burgess and Nipel. Look forward to hearing from them moving forward. And then the regional plan, we're looking forward at that. That'll be underway here soon. And then some of the Proposition 419 expenditures, and that's the transportation tax. And then moving into a special recognition of Jack Welch. I'm hoping to have the opportunity to interview Jack in the coming weeks prior to presentation to council, so I can provide a brief history and bio and some of the highlights and all of the great work Jack has done for bike and ped in our community, and other work too that I'm going to find out all about. But really, I'm excited to give that special recognition and honor to him. And we do need commissioners, transportation commissioners, and now might be a great time to recruit people who are particularly passionate about transportation in our community and that are eager to serve. So I'm going to do the call for applicants and then field questions. Jeff and I and Martin and I kind of worked on this draft before hearing council's comments last night pertaining to the focus of bicycle and pedestrian safety and design and the focus on that and the expenditures towards those programs. So that said, that I feel like that's going to be a focus of conversation or interest by council. And so we may need to rethink this a little bit, but I've done a lot of talking. I would love to hear from my fellow commissioners on your thoughts of this approach. So who would like to start? Kick it off. Commissioner Kuhn, can I put you on the hot spot?
Yeah, go ahead. You know, I'm good with this. I think the big thing sometimes is, I think the Metro Plan update, you know, I like what you did. I think you need a little more time on that. Because when we do those, and you look at, you know, you've been involved with a couple of them, so I have over the years, the significant time. And that's where, if we're going to do, you know, I have a lot of family lives in Denver, and you know the area. You were up in Boulder for a while. You know, the separation of bicycles and cars is significant there. And if we're going to move that way, it starts there. I mean, you know, I don't bicycle, but I think many of you know, I have a world-class niece that's a bicyclist here in the town. So, you know, and she's big into it. So, you know, I get it in the family that I have in Denver. So, you know, we have to. So, yeah.
So maybe, I think you said Metro Plan, but maybe were you thinking the Active Transportation Master Plan, the ATMP, spending more time in that one?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn. Commissioner Morley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, a question for Jeff. Maybe he can help remind me. I feel like there may have been a point in time where there were draft changes to the charter of the commission that maybe never went through. Is that accurate?
I'll have to think about how long you've been on the commission.
Pre my time on the commission. Something about the budget authority or authority related to 419.
Yes, so we updated that a few years ago.
Okay,
and
so that
then, well, no, we did it a few years ago, and then when 419 passed, the language is it's referring to the Transportation Tax 2000 now. And so, yes, we've worked on draft language to switch the words Transportation Tax 2000 to 419 or something similar. We actually talked about going to a more general description instead of, you know, calling out the tax. Yes, I know the commission was in favor of that. I've got to think myself. It has not been approved. I know that part. I don't remember if it's in my court or the city attorney's court or somewhere else, but I know the commission is in favor of that change, and it's really just a timing kind of update thing. But that has not been officially run through, but it is out there. So good memory on that. Thanks.
And the reason for my question is actually, I would say, you know, quite candidly, publicly, candidly, I'm not always clear on exactly what the expectation of the commission's role in the expenditures and transportation taxes. And so I wonder if others also feel that way, and if maybe there's a dialogue with the council about what their expectations for us are, what they want our role to be. How can we support council in achieving goals? What role do they want us to play in transportation planning projects, et cetera? I feel like our role as a commission in my time here, which hasn't been that long, has been very much focused on addressing public comment and complaint. And is that really the role that is the priority for the commission, or is there something broader? And if others feel very clear, then, you know, feel free to overrule me, but I feel like that would be a useful discussion or dialogue to have.
Thank you, Commissioner Morley. And I think we have a great opportunity here. When I hear from council about their interest and focus on public safety related to transportation and funding and reviewing that, here we are poised to support that effort. And I think that would be a great conversation to have as part of the presentation of how can Transportation Commission support these efforts? What would you like to see of us, and how can we also support staff in these efforts? And what do you want to see from us in that role moving forward? How can we help? How can we help be a part of the conversation? Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Morley. Do you have other comments related to the flow or the agenda?
No, I think it makes sense. I do think it's going to be packed because we could talk about any of these topics for quite a long time. But think it's a good overall summary of what we've been working on and the things we want to be working towards. So,
okay. So maybe we actually reduce the time set aside for what we've been working on and just move that time really to looking forward and just spend a couple minutes of here are just some highlights. Okay. Based on what I've heard from you and what I've heard from Commissioner Kuhn.
I would support that, yeah.
Okay. And then I want to hear from Vice Chair Parks, and then we'll go to Councilmember McCarthy after Vice Chair Parks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I would be interested in hearing the expectations from council as well. And because, you know, I served previously on a 3-year term, it's my understanding that we're not just supposed to be reactive, we're also supposed to be proactive on a number of transportation issues here, and saying here, but I mean in Flagstaff. I see an opportunity also to address some of these safety issues in terms of traffic calming in the neighborhoods, and you know, with interest in reducing motor vehicle speed in particular. And also that would come up as well with the, where is it? Yeah, the Presidio Gate update. Police safety is touched upon there, if not the main theme. So that would be how I would handle the, you know, the additional focus on safety. That some of these things we've been talking about are about safety of pedestrians, of motorists, and of cyclists, really anybody using the road.
Okay. And Vice Chair Parks, so I'm hearing you kind of agree, let's shift time from looking backwards to a little bit more time on the maybe the ATMP, and then also asking or having that conversation about expectations.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic. Any other comments, Vice Chair Parks?
Whoops, I muted myself. All right, no, thank you very much.
Okay. Councilmember McCarthy.
I have to agree with Kate Morley's comments that it's not absolutely clear to me what the role of the commission is in some of these, you know, and I'm actually chair of the Metro Plan, and that's a real nebulous organization too. So, and we've spent some time recently. So I guess I'm going to put it in my personal to-do list to go reread the charter. But I think that would be worth a discussion with council. The other thing I'd like to bring up is that Kate Morley and her team, in cooperation with the city, just got a very large pedestrian bicycle last mile grant. And that would definitely be worth bringing up. It's an example of, you know, different organizations working together and getting things done. So and that definitely ties in, and it's a positive thing. So I think that'd be good to add in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. Councilmember Shimoni, do you have comment or thought that you would like to share related to our update to you in a few weeks?
Thank you, Chair. You know, I think it's a good agenda. I think, like Commissioner Morley said, it's a lot. So there's, and as you mentioned, I think it's good. I'm really excited about the conversation. I already have ideas in my head about how we can better leverage our relationships and you all, your expertise, and give you more proactive work versus reactive work that can really be beneficial to me as a council member. So I'll save my comments for that conversation, but I think it looks good. I think the ATMP really needs to be highlighted, in my opinion, just because that's a really big document that's about to go out to public review. And we really need to make a big splash with that public review process. I like the conversation about speeds, traffic mitigation, proactive work. You know, I like the idea of talking about funding, 419 money. We really need a big shift in Flagstaff. And I know staff is all on board with these ideas, but I do think we can do more. And so that's where my mind goes. But thank you for asking, pulling me into the conversation.
Thank you for letting me put you on the spot.
I always have something to say, like Councilmember McCarthy, so anytime.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts from commissioners? Alrighty. Do we have members of the public that have joined us that would like to address the commission about this item? All right. Looks like I have a hand up here. I only see the first part of the name.
It's Rich Gerardo.
Okay, Rich Gerardo.
Sorry.
Please go ahead, Rich. Thank you for joining us.
Just briefly on this topic, I heard the council speak about Boulder, Colorado. I grew up there, and I first of all want to extend my condolences. And bicycle riding in Boulder was a way of life for me. And I was one of the first people that started to do many of the activities with, now please understand this in the best content, with my Fairview High School football team. I was the captain, and we were recruited, and I took our team and we started laying the first bicycle paths in Boulder. And I think there's an opportunity to get the community involved in such a way that would help reduce and utilize both some of the land and the annex lands that the city of Flagstaff may have to help reduce, which we did, the fatalities, as well as being able to have pedestrian and bicycles to use these paths. So if I can help in any way, I'm willing to do so. I've been this route, and it's the best if I can help, I would love to do it. That's all.
Thank you, Richard. Any other members of the public that would like to speak on this item? Councilmember Shimoni?
Chair, is it okay if I add one more quick comment?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Something came to mind. You know, part of our budget that we're approving this for this upcoming fiscal year is, and Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's $1 million. And I laugh as I say that because I'm just so excited about this. $1 million to go towards separated, safe bicycle infrastructure. And what that means to me are those little white flaps that go on that line, that thin strip of paint, and create a consequence for drivers if they cross that line. So ultimately creating more of a safe and aware space for cyclists. So we've talked about pilots, and it'd be great to get this commission's involvement in those pilot process and helping us speed up that process and making that a reality sooner than later. So I just wanted to plant that seed with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And we do have, an opening on the Transportation Commission for anyone who might be interested in submitting an application to participate in some of these conversations coming up. All right. Okay. I don't see any other requests or comments. So with that, I would like to close out that agenda item. and move to new business 2B. This is Mount Pleasant Drive near Green Mountain. And these are the speeding concerns. This is in the Continental Country Club area. So we had, during the public participation a couple of months ago, we heard from a couple of residents in that area about the issues with speeding. And would like to turn this over to Jeff to present some of the research that has been gathered and give us an update on Mount Pleasant Drive.
Thank you, Chair. I stopped sharing while Stephanie brings over her presentation and gets us started, but you're right. This was a request that came to us in April, and weather and timing all worked out. And so we are actually ready to go in June. And here we go.
And I can see your screen.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie. So that was a great introduction. I'm just going to move to the next slide now. So we were able to count the week of May 17th out there on Mount Pleasant. Here's a map to show you where this is located. We had previously had a Mount Pleasant concern that was over here kind of by these lakes. I don't know if you guys remember that. There's a little hill right here. And we had that maybe last year, end of last year. So now we have one right over here, just south of Green Mountain. So yeah, let's see. We typically look at the 85th percentile speed, and once again, the 85th percentile speed is the speed at or below which 85% of vehicles travel. So that's located right here. The 85th percentile speed was 29 miles per hour. The average mean speed was 25 miles per hour. And you can see the volume right there. The total of both of those equates to about 414, I think. So that's that for data. On to the next slide, we threw our count into the residential management score sheet. You guys have seen these before. Hopefully you remember them. I will run through it pretty quickly just to go on a couple of the focus points. Let's see. So here's my mouse. Our 85th percentile speed was 29, which was not 5 miles per hour over the posted speed. It was just under that, so it actually did not get any points for that. It did get some points for speed between 5 to 10 miles per hour. We got about 12 points when you added those two guys together, with the 8.6% of the 5 to 10 and over 10 miles per hour got us about 12 points. Moving down, we looked at the volumes as well. It did get some points for volumes. The volume was larger than 200 vehicles per day. It was at 414, like I'd mentioned before, so we got some points there. Coming down to the primary factors, in order to move forward to the contributing factors, you needed 20 points here. So we were just under that at the 17. We did move forward just to see how it ended in, at the end here. Running through a couple of the contributing factors, there were no elementary schools, there were no pedestrian generators in the area. There were about 6 houses per 300 feet, which gave us about 2 points here. We were not adjacent, parallel to a major or minor collector within 2 blocks. There's not a parallel road. It runs into Butler, but that's perpendicular. No bike routes, no bike lanes, not near a foots trail. Transit stops within the zone did not exist, but we did get some points down here for the absence of continuous sidewalks on at least one side of the street. So long story short, we got 23 points down here, adding the 17, the 2, and the 4. So as you can see here, Mount Pleasant, south of Green Mountain, scored 23 points, which does not meet the minimum standards for the RTMP. Minimum standards down here explains that it's 30 points overall. Okay. So this was kind of a quick one, but the speed counts illustrated that the 85th percentile speed for the combined directions is 29 miles per hour, and the average mean speed is 25 miles per hour. This is good compliance, considering the 25 mile per hour posted speed limit on this residential roadway. These numbers are within the range of what we commonly find on a residential street of this type, and they are considered by us to be acceptable. As of now, we do not recommend moving forward with any improvements on this section of roadway. And I do believe we have a citizen, and I don't know if Jeff wanted to add anything before I hand it back over to you, Julie.
I think Jeff or Stephanie, it would be helpful if you could, I mean, commissioners have seen this spreadsheet and how we do our tallies, but if you could speak to a little bit of the history, why we generated this spreadsheet, the format, and the formulas, just briefly, I think that would be very helpful in the members of the public that may be seeing this for the first time.
Okay, I can kind of start us off, and then I'll have Jeff jump in because I'm sure he has more information. For all I know, he may have actually created this spreadsheet. But yeah, so this is in our residential management handbook. It's a big fat document that goes over possible solutions for speeding in neighborhoods, which talks about the traffic calming. If it meets these criteria, it talks about traffic calming or other types of improvements that we can make to slow speeds down, to prevent cut-through traffic and whatnot. And as for history, I don't even remember when this document actually became available, but it feels like we semi-recently started using it a lot more. Maybe it's just because we have a lot of concerns out there. But yeah, Jeff, is there anything you can add on that?
Sure. This document was developed through the Transportation Commission. I don't remember the date. It's on the cover of the document. I think it's been more than 10 years. So basically, we needed to come up with a framework to kind of score or classify these requests that come in from neighborhoods. We struggled previously, before we had this document as a commission, to figure out, is this a real problem? Is this not a problem? Is this a really bad problem? And so we came up with a scoring sheet. The primary speed indicators and volume indicators are the top half. And then we have these additional factors, basically land use, different types of activities, and then the sidewalk criteria or foot trail criteria. So we needed to have a way to score these streets, and this is what the commission came up with several years ago. And so it's not typical, actually, for us to see these score sheets come in under. There we go. 12. All right, 9 years. Hasn't been 10 yet. Close. In any case, the guidebook also has the traffic calming measures that we typically rely on, and talks about when they're appropriate and what types of concerns each of the kinds of measures can be effective against. So hopefully that was enough of an overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions because we do work with this quite a bit.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Stephanie. Congratulations, Stephanie, by the way. I see a different last name there. So congrats on that sidebar. So what I'll do, I'll ask if any of my fellow commissioners have any questions. We'll address questions, then receive some public comment, and then commissioners, I'd like to get some final feedback and your thoughts about what's been presented. So we'll start with questions. Commissioners, any questions for Jeff or Stephanie?
Stephanie, this is Commissioner Kuhn, and I was shocked to see that low points. I've been on the Transportation Commission now for a number of years, and I don't remember that. And you said it. You very seldom see that low points. Total.
Oh, yes. No, for sure. Honestly, we do a lot of studies that you guys don't see. So most of our studies actually have this low of points because we never actually move it to plugging it into the residential management score sheet. So a lot of our studies come back at that 85th being 25 to 30, and we don't even bring them to you guys. Hopefully that's still okay. So yeah, we actually do see that quite a bit, but this is the first one you guys have seen.
Okay. All right, that's what. Yeah, you qualified that. Okay, thanks.
All right, seeing no other questions from commissioners, I'd like to open it up for public comments. We have members from the public here that would like to address this particular agenda item? And if so, I invite you to take it off mute. If you could limit your comments to a few minutes, we would appreciate it. I believe your first name is Carrie. Are you wanting to address the commission? Because I think you're on mute. Stephanie, are you able to unmute?
I am not
Carrie
seeing
Richardson?
a carry on here. Are you seeing somebody moving their faces trying to talk?
Yes, I was.
Huh. I'm not seeing that. All I see is your face and Kate's face.
Okay.
Carrie with a K.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I see him down here, Carrie Richardson. I can try to unmute him. Let me see if it works. Nope, all I have is to mute him.
Mr.
I'm
Ris-
unmuted. Sorry, I was talking to my wife. I'm waiting for something further along in the council.
well, I just wanted to check. I wanted to give you that opportunity. So thank you. Stephanie, you said there was a member of the public here with us that would like to speak to this item. Do you know who that was? We can call on
Yes.
them.
It's Bill Babb. I am not sure if he had the ability to talk. I know he might have been struggling with Teams a little earlier with Reed. So yeah, if he can throw a comment in or unmute if he'd like to speak. Yeah.
And I believe we heard from Mr. Babb last commission meeting.
I believe that's true. I missed that one. But if anyone else does want to summarize that, you guys can go for it.
I mean, I think it was, speeding obviously is the issue. We'll give him just a moment. Richard Gerardo, I see your hand up. Is that left over from the last item? Or would you like to address the commission on this? Okay, you don't.
No, my apologies.
Right. All right. Well, let's move to commission discussion. If you would please, Stephanie, can you advance the slide to the last one, the conclusions?
Yep.
And I can start on, I'm happy to start on this one. I support staff's recommendation based on the data received and reviewed and the procedures and process we have in place for how to address or what needs to be implemented once we meet a particular threshold. I understand that we have had some comment from the community in this particular area, so I would encourage, as always, enforcement, occasional enforcement to help change some of those behaviors that that the residents are observing. But with that, I agree with staff's assessment that it's no further action warranted. Commissioner Morley, you have a comment?
Yeah, so I definitely support the use of the tool. I think that's really important for us to be able to prioritize how we spend resources, time and money. I'll be the broken record here again and say, I think part of the issue is 25 miles an hour in a neighborhood feels really fast. If somebody is driving that fast down your neighborhood street, people are probably complaining that they're speeding, even though technically they're not. I think this goes back to that look at our engineering holistic look at engineering standards to have a conversation about, should it be 15? What are people saving by going 25 for half a mile instead of 15? And what safety and quality of life could we be bringing by that change? I think even if we did that, this project per the score sheet, it would only get 5 more points, I believe. So it may still not reach the threshold of taking action. But I do think, it brings up that broader conversation of how fast should people be going in neighborhoods, and is 25 the right speed limit to be starting with? I think my other question is that's a question just about the score sheet, and if there's a different way to think about it is related to the bike lanes, because I think we give points if there's like a dedicated bike route or bike lane. I think you just went over that. But in residential streets, we often don't stripe anything as bike lanes, right? We just assume that the bikes are on the street. So how do we, do we want to rethink the way we consider bikes, being that we're not building infrastructure, designating anything on these roads for them? So again, I support the use of the tool. I think there's broader issues to be discussed, and maybe we could bring forward with the commission or relook at the engineering standards. Not sure what the right next steps would be, but obviously I think I bring it up every meeting, so would be very interested in talking about residential speed limits.
Thank you, Commissioner Morley. Noted. Comments from other commissioners? What staff is seeking is a recommendation on the path forward. So I would like to hear from each commissioner on their general thoughts about staff's recommendation.
This is Kevin speaking. I support the staff recommendation.
Commissioner Kuhn?
You know, I support them too. You know, that's why we built this, and you build it for just these cases, and you know, it's viable data, and we have to go with it.
Thank you, commissioners. So I've heard unanimously that there is recommendation to move forward as staff has staff has presented here, with, of course, the caveat that from a big picture standpoint, let's tie this conversation about how we score related to perhaps bike and ped infrastructure as we have that discussion about engineering standards moving forward. Sound good? Okay, I see nods. All right, with that, I'd like to close item 2B, go to item 2C, which is the Transportation Capital Improvement Program. And Mr. Peterson, are you here with us this evening? And would you like to provide an update on the CIP?
Yeah, I certainly would. Hi, everybody. My name is Brett Peterson. I'm the capital improvements engineer for the city. My camera was hidden. It's good to be here with all of you. I do want to start with a quick statement that tonight's presentation is going to be very brief and hopefully not more than about 5 minutes. What I do plan to do is come back in August with the detailed 5-year plan. I've been working with our accountants to get the information that was available. And as you're all aware, the tentative budget was approved last night in its draft form. It'll be finalized June 15th and go into effect July 1st. So a statement that I heard our city manager make reference to through this process is it truly is an effort that involves many people over many months, 6 to 8 months worth of effort to get to this point in the budget season. We're almost to the finish line as it relates to the FY22 budget. What I am committed to do is come back in August, present to each of you the 5-year program as we move forward. And then I would like to work with our traffic engineer to define a meaningful way that this group can participate in the development of not only the priorities, but the logic that goes into the development of that 5-year program. Recommendations for the FY23 budget are going to be due in about January. So I would like to get this group engaged initially in August, again 2 months later, and see if we can't make some truly meaningful headway in what your role is. And Commissioner Morley, I appreciate you bringing that up. I know we've talked about this in the past, that the role of this commission at times can be less proactive and more reactive, and I want to do everything I can as a capital improvements engineer to help you all provide meaningful input moving forward. I believe here we go.
Thank you for those remarks, Brett. That's exciting to hear.
I need to unshare because it didn't pick the right one. There we go. So I believe what you can see is the summary of the capital improvement program for FY22, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So this is truly a summary. In the presentation last night, one of the slides near the end made reference to all of this information is available on the city's website. It can be accessed under the tab that shows budget forms for FY22, and it's marked tentative. It's under budget legal schedules. It's on that financial page. So it's fairly easy to access. As we move into what it means, what it's going to show is for each of the various funds that are available, there's a carry forward amount, which is money that was unspent from the previous year and will be carried over and added to the final FY22 budget. And then that last number is the sum of the carry forward plus any money that was allocated. So as we scroll down, there's only 2 pages, so this is going to go really quick for you. You're all familiar, I'm sure, with the way that our budget book is set up. There's a general fund account, a library fund, a parking fund, which includes money for temporary south side curbs, as well as some property acquisition. And then we dive into more of the transportation related type projects. So we have the Highway User Revenue Fund, where we have category of street construction and the various items associated with it. That would include annual street maintenance overlays. That's where money would be available for the Sunnyside neighborhood improvement, etc. One caveat I will make statement on here is that it's contingent upon the sale of an auto mall. So while the budget includes authorization or appropriation for almost $1.7 million, it's still contingent upon the sale of, I believe it's 2 lots out at the auto mall. Under transportation, you can see various projects related to the large improvements like the Beulah University realignment, San Francisco Street and Franklin traffic signal. We have funding in here for the wrapping up the Schweitzer Turquoise roundabout, and that money, I believe we are whole with the state at this point. That project was completed previously. I believe we've negotiated our final payment with ADOT moving forward there. Solier Avenue is a project that's listed. We have funding in the program for the transportation master plan. There's again some more money for Southside curbs that can be added. We have a specific amount designated for the Plaza Vieja traffic improvements. The bids that we recently received for that particular project exceeded our budgeted amount. And so we're working with our funding sources to try to figure out if and when we can continue to make those improvements. As we scroll down a little bit further, there's the transportation tax funding. So Proposition 420, as an example, was the Lone Tree Railroad overpass project. That appears in this first year. And again, at the top of this thing is the carry forward amount and then the budget for FY22. What this sheet does not tell you all is what we have programmed for the remaining 4 years of the 5-year program. And so when I present that more familiar looking summary in August, I think this will make a lot more sense. Road repair and street safety funding is in this Transportation Fund. That was the tax that was approved in, I believe it was 2014. We're about to wrap up the first 7 years of that program. We're excited about it. We've got, really, it's probably 4 big projects. We have 2 that fall within the West Flag improvements area, which is up on Cherry Hill. There's another one down in Schweitzer Canyon. And then we have 2 in the Coconino Estates neighborhoods. Coconino Estates Phase 1 has been under construction now for about a year. Phase 2 is just about to kick off, and we're really excited about getting those projects moving. We have funding that is available for the Butler Avenue widening project, which I know is going to be a topic of conversation on what exactly the scope of that project should and needs to include. I think the Lone Tree Butler to Pine Knoll piece is we're going to use a portion of this funding to advance the improvements along existing Lone Tree between south of Butler, but down to about Sawmill. And so we're excited about really kind of cleaning up that component for all 4 legs of that Lone Tree Butler intersection. We have money in for under traffic operations or street operations, traffic signal program, Lockett Fourth Roundabout, intersection improvements, traffic signal technology, dark skies lighting, and neighborhood plans. There's money in there for the quiet zone modifications, which we continue to make headway on. And then there's a category under bicycle and pedestrian improvements. And Councilmember Shimoni, you are correct. There was $1 million designated in that first year for priority projects associated with improvements specific to that area. It's the protected bike lanes item here in the amount of $1 million. I think it's another $1 million the following year, and then it looks like 315,000 in the third year of that effort. So we're looking forward to advancing the entire program. I think there's going to be some tremendous opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to truly engaging this body to help us inform and develop next year's FY23 budget moving forward. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop at that point and ask if there's any questions of me. If not, I look forward to coming back in August and presenting the 5-year summary that you're more used to seeing. Over.
Thank you, Brett. I think one question for me, and it's more of a clarification, as we look at transportation funds specific for bike and pedestrian improvements, and we also look at the projects for roadway, those roadway projects. So if you scroll to the previous page, when you're talking about Lone Tree and Beulah University, I want to confirm that the dollars that are set aside there, those are for complete streets. So for example, Lone Tree funding, that includes bike lanes, sidewalks, urban trail, perhaps grade separated crossings. It incorporates Martin's program into those budgets. So like we're not using funding from transportation or PED to build that. Like that's already included in roadway. Is that correct?
Yes, and certainly in the case of the Beulah University, that project is we're at about a 60% level of the completion of that roadway improvement. Council Member Shimoni had asked that in a previous meeting that we bring that design forward so that we can analyze all the various components. But yes, it definitely at this stage of the game includes that complete street model and analyzes how all modes of transportation system can take advantage of the improvements. So whether we're talking about the mountain line bus transits or bicyclists or pedestrians, et cetera. That is very much going to be a component of it. The Lone Tree Overpass project certainly will include all of that. We're taking a lot of feedback right now on making sure that the bicyclists and pedestrian movements through that corridor are going to be well accommodated, and my commitment as the capital improvements engineer is to make sure that we do have a system that we can all truly be proud of, and that complements the many roles of how our community moves throughout Flagstaff. Over.
Commissioners, questions and comments for Mr. Peterson? Commissioner Morley.
Thank you. Really appreciate the presentation and appreciate you engaging this commission on it in the next cycle. I know capital improvement planning is really complicated, trying to figure out what to prioritize out of all the needs. And so adding us to the layer of complexity, I recognize the effort and just want to thank you for that. Question on how you account or plan for things like which particular projects happen in terms of like the overlay and maintenance. I'm thinking particularly right now of Cedar Hill, the repavement or preservation, I don't know what the right term is, that's going on currently. And a little bit, again, tied to bike ped safety and how we move this forward. How can we do minor things to improve, bike lanes as you go over Cedar Hill, et cetera? Are there opportunities to narrow the existing lanes at no cost? We're doing the project already, so there seems to be opportunity that I know on this project we've missed, but I bike this route every day and I'm thinking all the time, wow, if we could get 2 more feet, I'd feel a lot better on this road. Or, at the east side on the westbound, it feels really good and then it narrows up and you don't feel good by the time you're at the top. And these things are all no cost. How do we get to rethink the striping of roadways through some of these projects, or is that tied back to the engineering standards and we need to change the engineering standards to be able to make those kinds of changes?
And Jeff, I may let you go ahead and jump in and answer that one. But I will say that, it's input like that I think is going to be very meaningful for us moving forward. And as we collectively, in a unified effort, develop each and every 5-year program from here on out, I think it's going to be very important that we have those conversations. But to your point, Kate, I think, or Commissioner, I think it's very important that we start that conversation early so that when we do have opportunities, we can take advantage of it. I'll turn it over to Jeff if he'd like to add anything.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a really extensive background or extensive experience doing just what you're talking about. So most every year, I think every year since I've worked at the city, the Public Works, it's bounced between different groups, but currently it's in Public Works. They do street maintenance every summer. And typically we get a map of all of the streets sometime in the winter and go out and take a look and see what changes we can make. It can be the things you're talking about, changing lane widths, adding bike lanes, whole bunch of things. I'd say Martin can help me, but I'd say almost 80% of the bike lanes in Flagstaff have happened through that program over the years. I bet 20% are new construction. I bet 80% are just restriping streets. We've been doing that every year since I've been here in 2000. We've restriped streets. This year we didn't do any. We didn't catch up to that program in time. We didn't get the map in time, and it just didn't work out with staffing shortages and the schedule. I still actually haven't seen the map of the streets that are going to be repaved this year. So there maybe is a chance, if I could get a hold of that we could make some changes. There's some opportunities out there, but actually we've caught most in the last couple of years. There are not many opportunities left for restriping streets. We tried to restripe Cedar a few years ago. And did add 6 inches or maybe even a foot to the bike lanes. But I think that was about the limit we could get to with the travel lanes and still maintaining that striped median down the middle, which has a big safety benefit as well. So I don't know that there was a lot of fruit, if you will, on Cedar anymore, because I know we hit that 5 years ago or so. So we do a lot of that, but I will say we didn't get any done this year.
Thank you both. I really appreciate that. I think I get really excited about those kinds of projects because they're just so cost effective, and I know we have limited budgets, and so appreciate that you guys are already looking at it. And yeah, if there's additional opportunities for us to get involved or rethink it, or even in places do full road diets. You know, do we always need all the lanes we have? Are there opportunities? So thank you guys, and yeah, let us know where we can weigh in.
Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Chair. I hope it's okay for me to jump in like this. If not, just tell me so. But wow, Brett, thank you for sharing what you shared. I was on the verge of tears at times just hearing you speak to this topic, and I just feel so confident in our team and our leadership and all of our city staff who are working on this to really help lead the shift that we're talking about and doing as we speak. My question is in regards to Butler, Lone Tree, and Beulah University. Are we planning to have the conversation like philosophically about, like, it sounds like multimodal is being taken seriously and in a way that I feel comfortable about, which is really exciting for me personally. But I'm still struggling with the way we prioritize or don't prioritize buses. And Kate, this might be a pass off to you, Commissioner Morley, but my thought is I love to see more bus only lanes. You know, I love to see us really start shifting also in prioritizing buses in a way that's really meaningful and sets them apart from the general traffic. Is that conversation at all going to happen with this group, or has that conversation happened?
Do you want me to take a stab, city staff? I would say in select, my view would be in select locations. So for example, the new Beulah extension is proposed, at least the latest drafts I've seen have proposed the outside bus only running lanes. There's definitely complicating factors to date in that our approach to that has been the you know, the initial cap, the incremental difference of the cost is borne by Mountain Line. And so that starts to become a little bit of a challenge for how much Mountain Line can do that, because that's not where our typical funding goes. Most of it is operations and not capital. So I think there are relationships or things we can work through with that about how can we strategize to be most effective between both entities. The other place where we've looked at it is, you know, really the Milton corridor through University, very high level through the BRT project, you know, which is now formally paused or on hold. A lot of that is ADOT right of way. There's not a lot of support from ADOT to consider that on the road. I think Mountain Line's fine saying that that's not, we understand that that's not the priority there. And maybe there are other things like transit signal priority, which can have a lot of benefit and be potentially a lot cheaper and benefit emergency vehicles or other uses who could tap into a transit signal priority system as well. So that would be my take, but city staff, feel free to add on.
I don't know that I have a lot to add. That seems like a pretty good summary of where we've been. It's been case by case. Beulah University is still progressing with not with bike lanes, with bus lanes on the outside lanes and with separated bike facilities on both sides of the street. So I think it's kind of that it is that cross section. So that's exactly what people have seen, what's happening there. I don't know that we've had detailed discussions about any of these future projects. Of course, we've spent years talking about Milton Road, and I'd characterize it about the same way. We're not headed that way based on, you know, a bunch of different factors. So public input, the analysis, project partner meetings, on and on and on. So I think that's probably a good summary.
Jeff and Kate, really quick follow-up. What about Butler and Lone Tree? Does it make sense to have bus-only lanes there at all, or not so much?
So I will say people have with the BRT, struggling on Milton Road. A lot of people have brought up the idea of could that happen on Lone Tree instead as an alternative, and something that the city has control, city and Mountain Line would have control over. I think historically we weren't really looking at it based on planned land use patterns, but if we are anticipating large developments to occur along Lone Tree, high density, in particular, commercial job centers, et cetera, big transit users, I think it could make sense. I don't know how far the city is in planning that cross section, if it's something that could still be on the table. People have brought up John Wesley Powell as well at a very high level. I think, again, it's to me, I just go back to like, what's the land use? And then there's still that who pays question, the funding question for those bus lanes. Mountain Line would definitely depend upon city to maintain and snowplow. We're not equipped to be snowplowing bus only lanes. So that we'd have to definitely have partnership on that side of things. You mentioned one other road, but now I forgot.
Butler.
Butler, we've had a lot of discussions about. There's actually more development occurring over there than I think I had originally anticipated. That's transit use oriented from affordable housing to senior care centers. I think where our discussions have been focused on Butler, or at the Butler and 4th intersection, and how the bus can be adaptive to moving through that. Our bus typically goes straight on Butler, but we do deviate to serve NPA at the start and end of school. So have to actually go onto 4th Street. And so the bus is making different movements, and we would like a stop with new development associated with Butler 4th Street intersection. But where you place that bus stop now starts to matter, because the bus has to be able to go straight sometimes and make a left sometimes. So I think we've talked more about what are the stop or signal, how could we design the intersection or signal to allow flexibility with the bus more than bus lanes themselves.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everybody. I appreciate the space to have that addressed. But I think we're heading in a good direction, and I'm excited about that. I do wonder, about traffic mitigation as well, and just really trying to do this right through and through, but I think we're on the right track. Thank you for giving me the time to communicate this.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here with us. And I have a feeling that we're going to have a lot of conversations moving forward about bike and ped and motorist safety. And Brett, I'm very excited about August and looking at the FY23 and 5-year plan. So I really appreciate your remarks on that. Vice Chair Parks, do you have comments that you'd like to add or share? Don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to give you an opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, as a pedestrian in most of my trips in Flagstaff, I'll say I was encouraged to see, I think I saw a line for enhanced pedestrian crossings that's not on the page that's showing right now. And also that, the amount of money going into the dark sky lighting on streets is also a benefit to pedestrians, not just motorists. And I'm really encouraged to see those types of improvements going into the streetscape and the kinds of money that we're putting on them. Thanks.
Commissioner Kuhn, do you have questions or comments that you'd like to add in?
No, that goes back to engineering standards. If we're going to move way, we need to look at those. And when we change, bike paths and other places are protective. And, Commissioner Morley's brought that up. If we do that, then you do a standard. And does it meet the standard? Yes or no? Because obviously, Brett, they're more expensive because your standard becomes, and the cost, you have to account for that. But up front, knowing that standard is there, then the funding, then they associate it with those standards.
Get it to align.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that would like to address the commission on this item? All right, hearing none. Mr. Peterson, thank you so much. We'll see you in a couple months.
Sounds great. Thank you all.
All right. We will move to item D on the agenda, 2D. This is the Basis School Citizen Petition. The citizen petition was included in the commission packet. And I'll turn it over to Stephanie or Jeff on this one to move through it.
Yep, that'll be me again. Sorry, you're going to be hearing a lot from me the rest of the day.
I'm happy to hear from you.
Oh boy. I feel a little out of my usual. Feel like I haven't seen you guys for a while.
Maybe in August.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. Are you guys seeing that screen then?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So for a little background on this guy, first I'll throw up a location map. Hopefully you all know where Basis is by now, but Jim and I in Pine Cliff right here. Basis is located right here. They have expanded since this aerial image, and they've now taken part of this parcel as well. Once again, this is all developed up here, as is this here. So location map just for memory there. A little bit of the background here. We received this petition. Jeff had presented this citizen petition to the commission in December of 2020, but I plan to review some of the information again. So this was the original petition to make Basis an official school crossing zone. This entails dropping the speed limit to 15 miles per hour approaching the crosswalks in the area, requiring extra permanent signage, and also the addition of the rollout signs. You can see these throughout the town, Seacrest, Kenzie, the one on Thompson. So a bunch of schools throughout town actually do meet this warrant. So moving on. So the citizen petition was submitted to City Council in February of 2020. City Council reviewed the petition in September 2020, and they recommended that the Transportation Commission review and act upon the petition. The petitioner and the Basis School has been notified of this meeting and attended the last meeting in December 2020. During the last meeting, we committed to studying the school to determine if it meets the requirements of the Arizona school crossing. I think Jeff had this slide last time. This is just showing you what the crossing looks like. These are the signs that would be required if the location meets the requirements. We've got the 3 rollout signs here. 1, 2, 3. And then we've also got the school crossing signs at each end. I don't even know what to call this sign, but I call it a school crossing sign. It's looks like a mom and her daughter with purses. So that's a little reminder of what it would look like out there. Moving on. The purpose of this official school crossing zone is to slow vehicles on the approach to the established yellow striped crosswalk. It's not meant to be a blanket slowing surrounding the whole school site. Speeds are only reduced on the approach to 15 miles per hour, and once through the crosswalk can resume the normally posted speed. Basis and the city would enter into a written operating agreement where Basis has responsibility for crossing guards, ownership of the rollout signage, and the daily placement and removal of the rollout signage, while the city has responsibility for installation and maintenance of the fixed signs and pavement markings. So the process for establishment and determining if a proposed location meets the requirements of the school crossing zone. First, the school submits a written request to the city. And then the city will conduct an engineering study, which first includes a field check of the activities near the school site and also visibility for pedestrians at the chosen crossing location. We then move on to step 1, which is the analysis of counting the school, specifically school-age pedestrians, The definition of a school age pedestrian is actually kindergarten through 8th grade. Sorry, so it's elementary and middle schoolers. High schoolers are not considered old enough. Sorry, high schoolers are considered old enough to know how to behave as a responsible pedestrian and even learning to drive themselves. So that's why high school students are not counted for this step 1. If those school age pedestrians are greater than 10, then we can move on to step 2. And if not, then the minimum requirement is not met. I've got the quote there of what it says in the actual study. A school crossing shall not be installed where the school age pedestrian volume is 10 or fewer. Moving on to step 2, if you do meet that minimum of 10, measuring the average time between gaps in traffic for students to cross. Step 3 is measuring the vehicle approach speeds. Typically the 85th percentile is what's included in the study. And then measuring the average number of pedestrian groups per gap. So moving on, the 2 likely outcomes are that the Arizona school crossing meets the requirements or they do not meet the requirements. So if BASIS does meet the requirements, the city will enter into a written operating agreement, and the city will review the surrounding areas of the school for deficiencies and areas of improvements. If it does not meet, the city will still review the areas and look for deficiencies or possible improvements. So getting on to the meat of the project. So we performed the study on Wednesday, April 28th, 2021. Reed and I went out there. Reed was posted on Gemini and I was posted on Pinecliff to watch the pedestrians. We counted all pedestrians and noted their age. We typically noted if they were on a bike, if it was an adult, so on and so forth. So all school age pedestrians count towards the minimum 10 to move on to step 2 of the study. Within the study, AD, on the next slide, you'll see what this means, but AD is adult, NSA is non-school age, and that refers to high school students. And SA is school age, and that refers to middle school and elementary students. So these were some of my notes from watching the crosswalk on Pinecliff. Here's the little description of what my notes are referring to over here. We went out there at about 2:55. I believe that's when they said their first bell time was. But we actually didn't start seeing people back up until 3:18. So the parents are backing up onto Pinecliff at about 3:18. This is just a little note I randomly threw in here. It may have gotten worse than this as the counts were taken, but 7 people were queued northbound and 11 people were queued southbound. So southbound would be southbound on Pinecliff trying to make a left into here. And then northbound, 7 people were queued trying to make a right into here. That happens along Pinecliff for the majority of their pickup schedule. Let's see, so 1 AD refers to 1 adult, doesn't matter for this study. Pinecliff was clear at about 3:35. That doesn't mean that it didn't get bad again down here, but for the bulk of it, people were waiting on the street. The parents were waiting for school to let out type thing. Let's see, at 3:40, we had 1 school age with 1 adult, and they actually walked right past my car, which was parked right here, and walked into the Wellbrook, which is a building that really does exist right here. There was 1 non-school age girl that crossed, 1 non-school age crossed south of the crosswalk, so they did not cross at the crosswalk, they crossed just south of it somewhere over here. I was able to still see past the crosswalk, which is always good when doing these studies. A couple of non-school age, an adult, 1 school age headed to Wellbrook, 1 school age and 1 non-school age, and then 1 adult, and then it was pretty much cleared out by 4 o'clock. So, summary of the study, there were 3 school age children that crossed, 2 of those with a non-school aged individual. So either with an adult or an older sibling is what we possibly think of. So looking at that, only being 3, if you count the 2 that were with an adult, does not meet that minimum of 10 at this specific crosswalk. So I took a couple pictures of what it looks like out there. You can see, I mean, I assumed these 2 looked like high school students to me. but I assumed that they were the non-school age. This was a little one, so I assumed he was a school age. This looked like a high school with a youngin', so that's kind of my judgment. It's kind of hard to tell really how old they are out there, but I used my best judgment. You can see actually on this picture, I'm glad I threw it on here, a lot of the pedestrians are walking southbound on Pinecliff. And they're actually not crossing. There's many more houses on that east side of Pinecliff than there are on the west. I think notes for that one. So over to where Reed was sanding. Oh, he was in his truck. He parked right here, and he was able to have a pretty darn clear view of this crosswalk on Gemini and also the roundabout. So some of his data over here captured people crossing at the roundabout. So once again, same parameters. Non-school age bike crossing the foots, which was right about here, I would imagine. One unknown age. It was kind of hard to see the age of what they are at the roundabout. So the couple of them were unknown. One school age crossing at the median 200 feet east of the roundabout. So I would imagine that's about right here at the driveway into Basis. So not even at the crosswalk. 3 non-school age crossing at the roundabout, 2 non-school age crossing at the roundabout, and then 1 school age and 1 non-school age crossing in the median break. Looks like the median break's about right here. So a couple of those didn't even make it all the way to the crosswalk over here. Assuming worst case scenario that those unknown ages were school age, we might have about 4 school age children crossing here, at least in this area. So once again, that doesn't hit that 5, and it's kind of pushing it because we're at a crosswalk here and a crosswalk here, and it should be 10 at each. So hopefully that all made sense. And if you guys want to interrupt, you definitely can. So let's see, conclusions. So for conclusions, neither location met the minimum requirements for step 1, meeting that 10 school age pedestrians. These types of school crossings are not installed at every school, because if they were, they would lose effectiveness at the places where they can actually have the most benefit. This includes locations with more than 10 school age pedestrians crossing, shorter gaps between vehicles, or even higher vehicle volumes. Similar to the Seacrest School zone on Highway 180, I noticed that the compliance from drivers there is great. That is a location where there are many students crossing that are grades K through 5. There are high volumes of traffic, and it is often difficult to find gaps in traffic to cross without the crossing guard. So I just wanted to throw in an example there of where I think a school crossing like this is very, very beneficial. And this is not the case with Basis. There is not enough school age pedestrians utilizing the crosswalk. The majority of the students I saw walking stayed on the east side of Pinecliff and headed southbound. This makes sense because there are not nearly as many houses on the west side of the roadway. There are also plenty of gaps in traffic for pedestrians to cross because the traffic, air quotes, in the area are actually the parents queued up to get on site. We have received a couple more concerns recently. First, regarding queued vehicles waiting in the bike lane. PD went out there a few times to enforce this, and parents stopped. The next concern we received, of course, was regarding queued vehicles not pulling over far enough for other vehicles to get past them. So first we had, hey, they're parking in the bike lane, and then we had the complaint of, hey, get them out of the bike lane because get them into the bike lane so we can actually pass them. So with that, we've got this study that does not meet for the school crossings, and we've got a couple other concerns that we've received recently. Granted, those concerns were on a really bad day of school. I believe Jeff can jump in if he wants to. It was a day where like school was almost over and it was just a madhouse over there. I don't know if they just let everybody out all at once or what, but yeah, we can talk about that more later. So we look to you for advice or ideas regarding these concerns. Question would be, should we block the bike lane during parent pickup? Should we allow that and make that okay? And I wanted to note a couple other things before I open it all up, but vehicles were queued along Pinecliff for approximately 15 minutes before the roadway was cleared. So this is only going on for approximately 15 minutes, at least the bad part where vehicles are on Pinecliff. And also we observed the majority of pedestrians crossing. When we observed the majority of pedestrians crossing, the vehicle speeds were effectively 0 miles per hour because everyone was stopped. We do still plan on doing some vegetation checks to make sure the crosswalks are safe. And from there, I'd like to open it up to Jeff because I don't know exactly what I missed on here, and I'm sure he would love to get in on this.
No, you did a great job. Thank you, Stephanie. I don't know that I have a lot to offer. Maybe some additional background. You know, we were talking about this Arizona School Crossing. This is part of Arizona Revised Statutes, Chapter 28, 797 is what we follow. And we follow this whenever we get a request from a school. Commissioner Kuhn can attest to how we follow this at other schools because he'll call and we'll talk about summer school and other programs where we need to expand the time at some of these other schools in town, and we take it really seriously because if these signs are just out all the time, which we occasionally see at some of the schools, drivers start to ignore them, and then if they're out in the evening, they ignore them. They're out during the day, you start to see less voluntary compliance, and you really need voluntary compliance to get people to go 15. 15 is a big reduction in a lot of these places. And we just obviously can't have police enforcement every day at every location. So pretty significant step to install one of these. This location just doesn't have much activity for crossing. Has the 3 crosswalks marked at the roundabout with pedestrian signs, has 2 mid-block crossings for the foots trails that are adjacent to the school that are both marked and signed. Often when we're out there, we can find a few things to improve. This is a pretty new area and we're just not seeing, we're not seeing vegetation issues, not seeing a crash pattern. Signs are good, markings are good. It's like, usually we can find something, and this one we're just not finding anything to upgrade out there. So I'll stop there, but just want to provide that little bit of extra background. Thank you, Stephanie.
So question about basis population right now. Are students virtual still, or a percentage of students virtual, or is it generally back to capacity at basis? Do you know?
They went back to in-person learning prior to FUSD. I can't remember the date, but it was weeks, if not a month or more before the other schools in town. I believe they still have a very small percentage that are remote, but I want to say I've heard it's less than 10%, might even be like 3% kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Morley, you've got a question?
Yeah, could you tell me more about the state statute? Does it say that if you meet these thresholds, you have to do this, or you can't do this if you don't meet these thresholds?
I believe it strongly recommends not doing it because of that. We want to use these for places that really need them. And like I had mentioned, the effectiveness of it just goes down if you put them in places that, don't meet that, at least the minimum threshold that we're referring to, that 10 vehicles.
But we're not legally prohibited from doing it if we chose to.
I don't think it says that. I would have to read it a little bit closer. I feel like I've read the whole thing a lot, but I don't think it specifically says that, no.
Thanks.
Commissioners, any other questions before I open it up for public comment? All right. Hearing and
Actually,
Vice Chair.
yeah. I had a question on the signage, and in relation to that, one of the notes in the studies done so far, and that is, why do we stop just for children in a crosswalk? And I bring this up because at dusk, it might be a little hard to tell whether the person is a child or not, especially when I observed that in the notes, one of the crosswalk observers, they said, looks like school age. They weren't sure. So wouldn't it really be a bigger promoter of safety if we go this far, or wherever we do this, that stop for anyone in a crosswalk?
Interesting. So just to clarify, Mr. Parks, are you referring to this sign right here that says "Stop when children in crosswalk"?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I never thought about that, but it's very true. You definitely need to stop for everyone in a crosswalk. These are supposed to be specifically rolled out when school is being let in and let out. So it's typically just children, but I totally hear you, and this could definitely be something we would bring up to the Arizona ADOT or the Arizona board or whatever, whoever it is down there, the registrar.
Well, and crossing guards cross for everybody. They just don't cross for kids. So, you know, that's a misnomer there. I know.
We have, I'll say that we have had, I'll jump in here because I can help with this a little bit. These are the official signs that have been adopted by the state of Arizona. We have had issues with, and Lieutenant Hernandez may be able to speak to this. We have had issues in the past when we don't have the exact signs where judges have thrown out violations of the speed or other violations. And Martin chimed in as well. State law requires drivers to yield to anyone who's legally occupying a crosswalk. So you're kind of, even though the sign says children, you're actually required by state law.
And this is Lieutenant Hernandez. I think just to add, because it is in a school zone where children are predominantly the ones utilizing the crosswalk, that's the reason for that being specific to that school zone. And as the traffic engineer stated, that we have lost cases where signage is incorrect and we issue citations based on signage. And if it's incorrect, not per state law, technicalities can throw out citations.
Any other questions from or general comments from commissioners? Otherwise, we'll go to public comment and then we can circle back to the commission to address Stephanie's questions at the end of the presentation about next steps and general recommendation for moving forward. Seeing none, Mr. Richardson, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to address the commission? Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I was the original petitioner on this. As I stated at the beginning, I was just asking for a little Flagstaff common sense to be applied here, especially with the rollout signs. As far as their basis in particular, the city is already asking people to slow down to 15 miles an hour for the roundabouts. This is just putting up some extra signage to emphasize going down to that 15-mile-an-hour speed limit that the city of Flagstaff has already asked for. And listening to the top of the presentation, where all the safety, talking about all the safety signs for bike lanes, still aren't enough, and deaths are still resulting from having taking extra care to provide for bike lane safety. You know, at what point is too much safety not enough safety? In addition, like Flagstaff in particular, as I've noticed with some of the rollout signs, they aren't a good idea here in northern Arizona because from the snowy season from October to April, the rollout signs present an extra challenge to the snowplow drivers. Like we're going there 180 along Seacrest, and the snow is plowed. They don't hit the spot there where the signs are out on the road. So those melt a little bit during the day and then refreeze overnight, creating icy patches in the morning. And so I was just, as my original intent was just asking for a little bit of Flagstaff common sense to be applied to some of these particular situations around schools where a permanent sign made so much more sense than having a rollout sign. And also when you're already asking the citizens there to go down to 15 miles an hour anyway, putting up extra signage to reinforce that just goes back to, applying a little bit of common sense. And some of your aerial photos does not show the increased building and traffic that's going to come as a result of the new construction. Directly across the street from that one roundabout, it appears from your photos that it was still an empty field. There was over 140 apartment units that are there being furnished. I don't know what the occupancy rate is it at right now, but when I initially filled out the petition, the occupancy rate was about 20% of that apartment complex. And in addition to the other, on the north side of Pine Cliff Drive there, that is completely, there's housing projects there now, and also down a little bit further on Gemini, there's a lot of construction that's been going on with I believe it's a VA hospital, and another, I'm not sure what the other building was. It's almost complete, but with an increased traffic coming to the road, and with the increased traffic, if they're not complete, just a little bit of common sense. Like I said, there's already 15-mile-an-hour signs up for the roundabout anyway, so putting up extra school zone signs to emphasize the 15 mile an hours doesn't seem like a bad thing.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Any other members of the public that would like to address the commission on this matter? Stephanie, would you please go to your final slide where you had questions?
Yes.
Okay. So to summarize, staff's recommendation is that it does not meet ARS for placement of this particular type of crossing signage, rollout signs, etc. I'm trying to read comments at the same time. Apologies. So that is staff's recommendation, is to monitor the situation to see if there are changes or other things that can be mitigated, but that it does not meet the warrant at this time for placement of that. And then the questions to us as a commission are really related to queuing during probably pickup more so than drop off would be my guess. Queuing issues related to pickup for a 15-minute period in the afternoon. So Commissioner Kuhn, I see that, or Commissioner Morley, I see that you have a comment or question.
Comment if you're ready for discussion.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as far as the school crossing goes, it doesn't even, I see staff's not recommending it, and I don't actually even hear the applicant asking for that. I hear the applicant asking for something much more permanent or easier, not something so complicated. And ultimately, I totally would support a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit here. I think people are generally slowing down for that roundabout anyways. And so can we just extend that and put up permanent signage? And would that be of interest to the applicant? I think it does pass that reasonability test. You know, I'm obviously a fan of slower speeds. There's no questions there. So I would support just lowering the speed limit and not making it as complicated as the state statute that we have in front of us. As far as blocking multimodal access, I definitely am not supportive of that. Bikers need a safe way to get through there. I think it's inappropriate for cars to be blocking that, and that needs to remain open. I do think the traffic issues, though, associated with basis are problematic, and I wonder if there are other alternatives we could explore with the Eco-Pass program, of reduced bus pass programs. There are a lot of basis students who ride the bus. Those buses are packed, and are there better ways we could be addressing transportation through that program, or getting parents more parents to use the bus instead of doing drop off and pick up in individual cars? Not achieving all sorts of goals for this community, carbon neutrality goals, etc. So I just think we could be more creative in the traffic issues that are there. And yeah, I think I'd be happy to lower the speed limit. I'm not sure that you need to do a bunch of other vegetation checks or other things. So those are my thoughts.
Other commissioners, comments, thoughts?
You know, I'm a big proponent of slowing people down around schools because, you know, the biggest thing people lose sight on is even in queuing in cars are, especially the younger kids, the height of the car and the height of a kid. And we run into it all that time. If you think about it, you lose sight of kids, especially smaller ones. And the slower you slow down in front and the slower you do that and you move, less chance of somebody getting hit. Now, I'm not as familiar with the bases as obviously MPA, but we, you know, over the years we had problems here. We had to finally fix and do some things. So, you know, I would go for signs. I'm into electronic ones. Carrie was right. Mr. Richardson was right. The rollout signs, they get hit in the snowplow. People run over them. I've seen one drag it 40 feet until they lifted it up over it. So, you know, I'll go for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn.
This is Kevin. Yeah, likewise, I would support slower speed through that area, and 15 seems appropriate. You know, I'd also support keeping the bike lane cleared. You know, it's for bicycle transportation, but you know, it's just one more instant that a pedestrian has a chance to see something coming through the crosswalk. If that lane happens to be clear, but if it isn't, it's awfully hard for through traffic to see a pedestrian coming out from between queued cars.
Thank you, Vice Chair Parks. Do we have a speed issue out there?
That is a really good question. I am gonna search really quickly on the computer to see if I have counts up there. The most recent count I've done was on Pine Cliff, south of Ponderosa. So let me see if I do. And Jeff, if you have any background of knowing, go for it.
I maybe need more clarification about what, where, and when. But you know, when school's letting out, we have basically zero speed in the area because there's so much congestion. Someone mentioned 15-mile-an-hour signs. Those are advisory signs on the approach to the roundabout because that's the design speed of the roundabout. So we've designed the roundabout for people to circulate at 15 miles an hour. So approaches and departures at those crosswalks are about at 15 miles an hour at Pine Cliff and Gemini. I don't know that we've collected, Stephanie's looking, but I'm pretty sure we've never collected speeds right in front of the school because speeding's never been a complaint or an issue before there. So I don't think we have that data.
We don't. It looks like the closest one I have, and I haven't looked at the data to make sure it was accurate, but the closest one I have is right here at the very end of these houses. We've never actually counted way up here since this development's come in. We've never counted up there. Just right here at 111, 1100.
Yeah, signage, in my personal opinion, signage doesn't necessarily lead to behavior changes if there's a behavioral issue. So placement of additional 15-mile-per-hour signs in that area, if they're already behaving that way, doesn't seem necessary. And I do become concerned sometimes that if we start to oversign our streets, that it can create driver confusion and clutter and lack of respect or attention to regulatory signage. That's just my opinion. So I'm less supportive of just saying you go out and, you know, recommendation is go ahead and install a 15-mile-per-hour sign. I think you need to take a closer look at that and how that works with other signage out there and truly identify if there is an issue. I like to be mindful about what signage is placed, because the signage that we want out there, we want it to have the most impact and be meaningful and not get glazed over in a group of signs. So that's just my personal opinion that I share with the commissioners and the community. I hear my fellow commissioners in support of placing signage, and I think the support I'm hearing is the support for slower speeds, for something to tell motorists, we want you to slow down. But again, it goes back to, do we truly have an issue there? So those are my thoughts on that matter. Related to the blocking of the bike lane, I'm in agreement with commissioners that let's not do that during pickup for that 15-minute time period. I hear what you said, Jeff and Stephanie, about, are there ways to alter the pickup and drop off and the queuing such that we can make it more efficient or safer, or allow for safe passage of vehicles in the travel way during that time instead of queuing, and that there's just some challenges with the current layout and geometry with doing so. But I would seek any opportunity to help with that. And I love Kate's idea about, is there a way for a rideshare program or providing transit of some sort? I mean, we have a school located in, right now, it's a sort of rural pocket of town. And so we have parents that have to drive their children to school at basis. And I'm curious as that area builds out, but it won't that much, because again, here there's been dedicated open space to the southeast, is it? And of course, in Buffalo Park area. So we're not going to see a lot of housing development other than the area immediately north that Mr. Richardson mentioned. So I see this as continuing in the future, this parent drop off and pickup. So I'm strongly supportive. How can we get a rideshare transit program to serve those students and to reduce some of that? So those are my thoughts. I think I saw Commissioner Morley, did you have another? I kind of lost track in the comments. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. I really appreciate your comment about just throwing signs out and creating confusion and clutter. I just was on Google Maps and perusing around, and actually both on Pine Cliff and on Gemini, right in front of bases, are 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs. So is there opportunity to make the speed limit 15 and just simply swap those out? And then you probably do have to, I understand, then there's probably another sign down the road when that shifts. But I wonder if there's some very simple things we could do just in front of basis. And yeah, I agree. I probably don't think a lot of people are speeding immediately in front of basis. And then it becomes this issue of, does that make it even easier to just say the speed limit's 15? Because it's going to be an easy switch anyways. We're just going to kind of document what's happening, but also make that what we want to happen, because that's now the rule. Or is it not worth the effort because it's already happening? I do think that there is a new housing development south on Gemini. I think I've seen something coming in for new condos or apartments or something as well that we haven't talked about. And then a lot of the uses up there are very much, veterans homes, senior housing, et cetera. So I do think we could see increased pedestrian activity in the area regardless of basis as well. So those are some of my thoughts, but I just wanted to weigh in on the signs. I agree we don't need 1,000 signs, but can we do something simple and just change the speed limit?
Looks like Lieutenant Hernandez, I'm just going to read these out loud because I think with the recording, it doesn't necessarily show the comments. So Mr. Richardson had a question about what percentage of Arizona has to consider snow removal. And Lieutenant Hernandez said, thank you for the question. Mr. Richardson, I do not have an answer and would have to research the percentage. Okay. Jeff and Stephanie, do you have any responses that you'd like to share with the commission regarding the signage? And after that, I'd like to move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, we have to, and maybe we're due for some just general speed limit education, but just some reminders on speed limits and changing the signs on, changing the numbers on the sign tend to not change what people actually drive. If you just change a sign from 30 to 25 or 20 or whatever, I believe statutory speed limit in Arizona is 25. So I think you can go lower for a school, but I'm not sure you can actually go lower for other just residential or other uses. You start to have trouble in court when you have unreasonably low speed limits, and you got to have really heavy enforcement to enforce. So I maybe I understood what you're misunderstood what you're saying, but to change the 30 to 15, 24 hours a day, that we'd have problems with that, and not see voluntary compliance for the 99% of the time the police department's not there. So I really that's not a very good solution in my opinion. Anyhow, I just wanted to comment on that before maybe that gains some momentum.
That's where you got to go to electronic, and you control it. You control it when it's on and off for the mileage, and that's the only way that works.
We have a couple of those around, and those are pretty effective. They're pretty darn time consuming to get set up every year, and are relatively expensive. But yes, if there was momentum to do some sort of variable speed, then I would recommend that. If that's the direction the commission is looking to go, I would recommend going that route. Of course, you got to figure out where. The school has multiple streets on its frontage. We're not seeing any kind of pattern for where pedestrians are going in, any predominant pattern. So it's a little more complicated than most school sites.
Commissioner Morley.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I know you're trying to wrap up. Question on something Jeff just commented on. The statutory limit is 25 miles an hour. So all the conversations more broadly about is 25 the right speed limit in a residential zone or other parts of town. Do we not have any authority to make decisions like that? And if that's true, then it seems to me like we need to start talking about how to lobby the state to make changes to allow us local control.
I'm not up, I haven't questioned the 25 miles an hour myself in whatever and forever or a long time. So I'll need to do a little bit of, that's why I said I think it's still 25 statutory speed limit prima facie in Arizona. So maybe we need to do a little research if there's interest in strong interest of the majority of commissioners to go look into that. We can add it to the the list of things to work on.
Thanks.
And Lieutenant Hernandez, just to chime in and piggyback off that, if it's a state highway, then it's a statute that is 25 miles an hour, aside from it being a private driveway or a private roadway that isn't maintained by the city. So any state law would supersede any municipal law that we have or we create. So it would probably be best to seek some legal advice to get specific override for privileges for the local speed limit, but typically it is 25 in residential area.
I guess I just need to understand if we have an issue or not. If we have a speeding issue, then we need to address the speeding issue either through enforcement or another, going through our matrix or our ranking that we've done before to address it in a measurable way. I don't know if we have a speeding issue at this location. And signage isn't going to change behavior. So I think moving forward, I think it would be good to have on the next agenda, maybe a little bit of education about signage so we can understand as a commission what the parameters are for signage. And we can be thinking about, well, this particular location, if there is an opportunity for decreasing speed, if there is a speeding issue, I mean, I would think that going 30 through a school area, that seems a little high, but I honestly have not driven that piece, so I don't know exactly where those signs are placed, to have firsthand experience on it. But I would recommend to the commission that we put it on the agenda related to speeds through residential areas, signage, standards, and enforcement. Would that be an acceptable next step for the commission?
That works for me, and if we could get clarification on what authority we have or don't have under state law as part of that, that would be awesome.
I support you there, Julie.
Okay, Commissioner Kuhn, are you on board with that?
Good with that.
Okay. Jeff and Stephanie, do you have clear direction from us on next steps? Or where we'd like to go with this?
Yeah, yep. So I have notes here. I won't revisit. I'm good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Richardson, for the petition and participating tonight in your comments. All right. So with that, I would like to move to old business, and we are moving in. It is 6 o'clock. Old business includes Boulder Pointe and Country Club neighborhood traffic calming. Those are the two items under old business. I would very much like to take 5 minutes. So 6:07 p.m. If we could please just take 5-minute break. Commissioners, can you stay on? Actually, I should do a check here. Commissioners, can you stay on for our final two items that we have on the agenda? Thumbs up from Commissioner Morley. I can't see Commissioner Parks or Commissioner Kuhn, so I don't know if it's thumbs up.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Thank you both. 6:07 p.m. I'm going to turn my camera off until I come back. Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy.
Madam Chair, I'm back, but not on camera.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Morley. Commissioner Kuhn, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, Councilmember McCarthy, you good?
I am here. I am here.
Thank you. All right. Jeff, are you ready? Stephanie?
Yep, totally.
Okay.
Let me share my screen.
Thank you for that 5 minutes. I had cake for lunch and I was starting to fade fast.
Oh, no.
All right, so moving to old business. Item 3 on our agenda, A, this is Boulder Pointe. We spent a lot of time talking about this as a commission, so let's just dive into it and see what, let's take a look at the new data.
I like it. All right, diving in. So this is a summary of the updates that we're going to go over. We'll talk about the new data that we just collected and show some pictures of the markings of the temporary traffic calmings. We'll then discuss briefly the radar feedback signs and also a brief discussion on the citizen petition to close Woody Way that went to council. And lastly, next steps. So jumping right into the newest data. So we set tubes at these 8 locations in end of April, beginning of May. I guess we can just jump into Woody Way over here. So this was one of the newest counts. We've never counted there before because of course it hadn't been open at the time. So Woody Way, you can see the added vehicles there, about 800 vehicle trips through this little section, 400 each way. Moving on, Southern Mission Timber has a large increase. So this guy right here, I call it Southern Mission Timber, even it's called Western because it's south of where we're counting. So Southern Mission Timber has a large increase due to there being more houses built in that southern section of Presidio. So this was all empty before when we had first counted. That's why it went up from 18 to 184. Northern Mission Timber did increase a little bit, but not nearly as much. Let's see, Axe Handle, moving on to Axe Handle, north and south of Woody Way, shows the same, about 400 extra vehicles, trips each way that are using the Woody Way. And once again, those 400 extra vehicle trips are moved on to Highland Mesa. West of Fresh Air. So those vehicles there are then distributed onto University and Highland Mesa. What looks to be a similar split as they were before. So from here, they will either go north onto University or go through more east on Highland Mesa. So if you follow, for an example, these 387 vehicles heading eastbound, which is this way, all the way through, you have the difference between these two guys right here equals that 266. The difference between these two guys here on Highland Mesa gives you that 125. 266 plus 125 equals, I think it's about 391, which is nearly this 387. So that's kind of just shows you where that split is going. 266 up there, 125 down there from that Woody Way traffic. Let's see, speeds are either the same or have actually decreased. On Axe Handle, this guy here, the decrease is significant because a lot more vehicles are making that left or right turn at a slower speed. So before, Axe Handle was just a through street. There were no people turning here. So now left turners are going here, which decreases speed 22 to 16. Same down here, about 23 to 20 of those right turners there. I can't explain really why they've decreased in other locations when the only thing that has changed has been the added traffic. But you can see where we have concerns up here on University. We were at about 35 in 2018, 2019, and we've gone down to 33. Can't explain it. More traffic, slower speeds. Don't get it. It's not like it's congested or anything like that. So I think I pointed out everything I wanted to on here. So moving on, and we can always go back to that, of course. So this is the drawing of the temporary traffic calming. It has changed a little bit since the last time we looked at it. Jeff Reed and I and the streets department all went out here to mark this stuff on site for the streets department to put everything in here. So this is going to be approximately 20 yellow candlesticks. Over here, we're going to have approximately 10 white candlesticks. Excuse me. The goal here is to bring traffic, have them follow the center line, push them over to the curb line, and then pretty darn quickly push them back into the center line in hopes of slowing them down, of course. Moving on, so this is what the markings look like when we were out there. If you go out there today, these are all still there. Our crew is hoping to get to it the next few weeks. He has the candlesticks on order and stuff. So it's hard to see, but on another image, we've got the bump out over here. I did a little rendering. It took way too much time, but it's kind of hard to tell what would happen there. So this was my attempt at it. Yes, I did it within, I see you laughing. I did it within PowerPoint, so it's not beautiful. And nothing's proportional, of course, but I threw those guys there. And on the next thing, you can see the bump out right here. So just to hopefully give you a vision of what this will look like, hopefully within the next few weeks. Let's see here. Moving on to the next location. So where we just were was, I should have mentioned that, was over here east of Tombaugh, and now we are west of Majestic. So in between some houses here, this is actually an empty lot. It seemed like a perfect location because we're trying to go between these two driveways here. Anyways, we've got these candlesticks, approximately 14 here, putting a median in the center. Once again, traffic comes here, they're forced to go to the curb line and then forced to go back. I don't think I have much to say about that one. That's what it looks like in the field today. Our circle did end up being a little bit smaller than we had anticipated, just to avoid driveways and not bug them, you know, to allow them to back out of the driveway and whatnot. So that's what it looks like out there today. This line over here is a parking line, and it will be removed from this point right here to some other point over here. So people are not allowed to park in front of their houses right here. Same with on the other side. So touching on the radar speed signs, they have been on order for some time, and we recently heard that they arrived last week. This is the preliminary locations shown below of where we plan on putting those. There are already streetlight poles in both of these locations. And this is bound to change when Jeff heads out there. I think he's going to go out there with our streets guy and just talk about it and discuss it and figure out if this is the best location for those radar feedback signs. But they are still going to be installed as well with this traffic comment. So moving on to the citizen petition to council, we thought it would be good to touch on this because it's kind of with this project, of course. So this petition was to close Woody Way to vehicle traffic while still allowing emergency access. Jeff had included in his packet an update on the project that he had sent to council around April 15th. The petition was presented to council on April 28th as a fair item, a future agenda item request. And council made the decision to not move forward with the fair item and requested that we move forward with our current study or project that we are already working on, and kind of, you know, give Transportation Commission the project and just keep working on it with where we're at right now. So that's that. And in conclusion, we're hoping that the temporary candlesticks and the radar feedback signs are completed within the next few weeks. Once school's back in session, we do plan to count again, making sure school's back in session, making sure there's enough time for drivers to adapt to the new patterns and hopefully deter them from cutting through this neighborhood. And we will, of course, be back in front of commission once the data has been collected and analyzed. And honestly, that's all I have. I do want to let Jeff hop in before we give it back to you guys, just to make sure I didn't miss anything on here.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Commissioners, questions or comments?
I can chime in real quick.
Commissioner Morley.
Yeah, I guess I would just want to say thanks so much to Stephanie and Jeff for working on this. I know it's been a long time in the making, and I think some of the solutions look great. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. And I've got a question from Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you. I guess a question to the commission. Does it bother the commission that the bicycle lanes are being interrupted? They're There's marked bicycle lanes and they're gone now if this goes through.
Thank you, council member. That was one of the topics of conversation at our last commission meeting. And, funny you should mention that, because as I was looking at Stephanie, at one of your renderings that showed the bump out with the white candlesticks, I was thinking to myself, is there a way to adjust those candlesticks to allow for the continuous movement of bicycles in that bike lane?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. Let me pull up Google Maps because it's a little easier for me to move around on here. So it is very, very confusing in this area. This is actually all parking, and it was striped incorrectly by a crew that's not from town. So this striping should actually be another 2 feet out, but this is actually parking. The bike lane ends, I believe it's right here. So what we're actually doing is cutting the bike lane because we've got this big old fat median right here. I'm going to draw it in here. So the only areas that we're actually taking away bike lane is from about right here to about right here. So opening that drawing back up. Give me 1 second.
And Stephanie, city engineer, Rick Barrett would like, I think, to share, if you could send that presentation to him. He may just be audio.
Okay. Could you share
Maybe
the
Jeff
presentation?
can do that while you're navigating.
Okay. And I'm actually the only one that has the, I have to save it to my darn desktop because my internet's so horrible. So yeah, I can try to do that to him real fast while I'm talking. So right here, so we've got this white skip line. This is typically showing, hey, there's an intersection coming up or your bike lane's ending. So we're going to be adding a white skip here. So we're only actually removing the bike lane from technically right here to right here. And then on this side as well, we've got a 50-foot skip saying, hey, we're gonna, this is technically parking over here, but we've got, an obstacle coming up here, and then the bike lane does start again right here. I believe I have it. So let me throw this in an email to Rick while we're all talking. So I don't know if that helps or if Jeff wants to hop in there and correct me on any of that.
I think while you handle that, Stephanie, maybe turn it over to Martin Ince. Martin, you've got a comment. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Two of the things that we look at for determining where bike lanes belong or where they don't belong is if a street is a collector level or above. In terms of functional class, it's considered a potential candidate for a bike lane. And then the second item is the average daily traffic. And if you go back to the one graphic that showed the traffic counts, we typically use 3,000 ADT is kind of a threshold for where bike lanes really provide a benefit. Above that number and below that number, they're less necessary. So most of the numbers on this graphic are fairly low, like well under 3,000. But that one section of University east of Majestic has about 1,300 westbound and 1,229 eastbound, which adds up to about 25 or 2,600. So we're starting to flirt with that territory where bike lanes start to become really beneficial and make riders much more comfortable. We also have this plan as a potential bikeway to kind of serve those neighborhoods as an alternative to riding on Route 66 to get into the university area and the main part of town. That's all I had. Thank you.
I'm eager to hear from the community and the users. I mean, what's great about what we're talking about and what you're doing is a temporary installation to see if it works and to hear the comments from the community. And so I would be I'd be eager to hear from cyclists their feeling about having these temporary measures in place and if that was to turn into a more permanent solution. Comments and thoughts from other commissioners? Or Councilmember McCarthy, did that address one of your questions?
Well, I think you kind of touched on it, but I don't know, maybe the commissioner members don't have an idea yet. Maybe they want to see it go through. But I find it kind of weird that we do have a bike lane, or what looks like a bike lane to me, and then all of a sudden it will disappear. As a bicyclist, I find that kind of bad, because all of a sudden I will be used to having my bike lane going down the street, and then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, I better either take the lane or jump up onto the sidewalk. And both of those sound dangerous. And there are a lot of pedestrians in this area. Incidentally, I live in this area. A picture of my house is on the map that's on the screen right now. So I am concerned that it's a safety issue where we have a bike lane, all of a sudden it disappears, and the bicyclist has to make a decision, jump out in the lane and block the cars and take the lane, or jump up onto the sidewalk. Maybe we need to make a ramp so the bicyclists can get up onto the sidewalk. I don't know, but it seems very problematic to me.
So I'd love to give, I think, Jeff, you have a comment. Love to hear from you. Mr. Wilson, I'm going to open it up in just a few minutes. So if you could open up for public comment in just a few minutes. So if you could hold tight, just want to let you know, I see that you have a comment. We'll get through some commissioner discussion and staff discussion questions, and then I'll call on you. So thanks for your patience. Please go ahead, Jeff.
Just wanted to talk about the bike lane ending real quickly. So we did put it, I mean, it is abrupt, obviously, because the bike lane is going to end, but it's traditionally ended into a parking lane. Now it'll end into a traffic calming median. So yeah, much more abrupt than it used to be. What we are doing in the field, I don't know if it shows up on the exhibit. Yeah, the white skips. I don't know if Stephanie highlighted that, but that's kind of the traditional roughly 50 feet. This one's probably a little shorter. Roughly 50 feet of skip striping at the end of the bike lane to alert cyclists that here comes the end of the bike lane. If this becomes a permanent installation, and maybe it's something we should talk about for the temporary, there are markings on the pavement that we could use. A ramp is a suggestion, though the sidewalks are really skinny to use a ramp. We might have to adjust sidewalk widths if we use the ramp. But there are markings on the pavement, like shared lane markings. There's shared lane signage. There are some things we could do that we thought about with the temporary, but we decided, well, let's hold off until we figure out if this is permanent and this is the permanent location. But I too am curious how this is all going to work out and what feedback we get. So just wanted to provide a couple of little pieces of information there.
Thank you. Other commissioners, comments, questions?
Can I make another comment?
Absolutely.
Well, what's on the screen right now, if a car's going westbound, which would be to the left on this photograph, so they're going to squeeze over to the right, and then in that intersection, they're going to have to immediately make a turn to a partial turn to the left to avoid the candlesticks on the far side of the intersection. I guess I'm concerned that they may swerve out into the eastbound traffic, because especially if they're going faster than they should, they in effect have to make an S maneuver there, which could be a problem too. Maybe not. Whatever.
I do think this is going to be a great test, because we have a speed problem out there, which is a dangerous situation. So I know the desire here is this going to be effective in and helping control that speed. Let's see, I'm going to read a few comments or questions. City Engineer Rick Barrett asked, what is the extent of use of on-street parking? Stephanie said, I do not see many people parking on University, maybe a couple per day. And Jeff responded also with typical single family parking usage. With that, I have Commissioner Morley with a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say I agree that the traffic calming is really an important part of the safety component, and I hope helps the bike and ped feeling along the corridor anyways. You know, I would say I'm not a design expert. If you haven't chatted with Martin about how to improve the bike and ped pieces and in some relatively inexpensive ways, I would definitely recommend, you know, fine tuning this or tweaking this with him to make sure that the bike and ped movements are really key. And then, yeah, I think when it comes time for a permanent installation, definitely, you know, want to do something that, yeah, maximizes that future, I think, bikeway or whatever Martin called it. But because I do think this is limiting for that. I'm okay with it in a temporary situation, but knowing that's the future of what we want, I think we might have to think harder during a temporary or during a permanent installation about how the bikes move through. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Otherwise, I'm going to move to public comment. Right. Public comment. Mr. Wilson, I see that you responded on-street parking is very limited on University, but now is an opportunity to share your thoughts with the commission. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I heard a comment you made earlier, and I may have misinterpreted and raised my hand prematurely when you were saying that you were anxious to hear the feedback from neighbors or residents. I live in the area. I'm not a bicyclist, but you know, I was going to say that I was going to use actually a comment that Stephanie had used on one of her slides about you know, they're going to be back in front of the commission once more data is collected and analyzed. And, you know, that's basically my position at this point in time. I've worked with Jeff and Stephanie, asking them for a lot of the detailed data that they collected. They've been very kind in sharing it with me, and I've just still in the midst of some of my analysis, but I'll be very anxious to see these temporary barriers put in place so that we can see what, you know, how they fare in the real world. I'm sure I'll hear some comments from neighbors and, you know, be anxious to pass that on. But like I said, I may have misunderstood your comment that you were thinking you wanted feedback tonight. I think it's a little early for me to give meaningful feedback, but I'll be very anxious to do that in the future. So that's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yes, the feedback I'm looking for is after the placement of these candlesticks in the temporary out here, how that's working for the neighborhood. Right. Any other discussion or any other public comments? All right. Thank you very much, Stephanie, Jeff. This is great to see. I think Commissioner Morley had some excellent comments about working with Martin to ensure that bike and ped component is addressed through this temporary installation. And then I'm eager to hear how it works moving forward and collecting more data. So with that, I would like to move on to the next old business item, our final old business item, and that is the Country Club neighborhood traffic calming update. And this is seeking recommendation from the commission for a path forward. We have new speed and volume data, which I believe Stephanie is going to present. I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, stuck with me again. Let's see. Sharing my screen. Turn that guy on. Switch my display. All right, so on to the next packet. Just for a brief summary, we received a citizen action request form signed by many of the neighbors out there on Country Club Drive. Just to kind of go through a couple of the bullets that they have right here, remove all I-40 directional signs from around this residential neighborhood. Sorry, this is to slow down speeders and remove trucks from traveling through the neighborhood. Sorry, next bullet, increase the number of speed limit and local traffic only signs. Posting of the radar feedback signs, increased police officer presence for enforcement, and possible drainage ditches to slow vehicles down. And then it looks like one was added here. I think it says crosswalks on Oakmont, where golfers and walkers walk. The curvy road is bad. This one says about the same thing, enforcing the speed and removing those I-40 signs. So moving on to the meat here. We collected traffic counts the week of April 12th in these two locations. This count at the 3305 North Country Club Drive was a really good count. The data was, when I say really good, the data was accurate. Our graph looked good with hitting the tubes accurately. Our Country Club south of Bear Paw, we had some problems with that one, so we actually ended up having to count that one again the week of May 17th, and that count turned out well the second time we took it. So we are on Country Club here. Bear Paw is right here. Driving range is up there a little further ways. Oakmont's up there a little further too. And so just to run through this, we're looking at the 85th percentile speed. Once again, is the speed at or below which 85% of vehicles are traveling. At this location, the 3305 North Country Club Drive, the speed, the 85th was 35 miles per hour. And that's the combined eastbound and westbound, and also the same. So westbound was 35, eastbound was 35. I wanted to note on here that we've got slopes. So it's almost like if we were in a drainage ditch right here. So we've got slopes on both sides of us. So that's where we counted right here. I believe this is probably their biggest concern of where the speeding happens, because it's once again at the bottom of two slopes. Up here at Bear Paw, on Country Club near Bear Paw, the 85th was 34 miles per hour. I wanted to note this, that the speed limit changes right next to where we counted. So just north of Bear Paw, heading northbound, the speed bumps up to 30 right here. So heading northbound, you can see that speed limit sign while you're here, and you may be inclined to slow down. Speed up ahead of time. So that could be why this is higher. And the speed limit is 25, changes to 25 right here, which is just before we set it here. So I'm talking really fast and I don't know what I missed, but I think I captured everything. 34 85th, 35 85th down here. I'm gonna mute someone over there. So we ended up throwing both of these speed limits into the residential management score sheet. Once again, you guys have seen this a gazillion times now. I can semi-quickly go through it. The numbers that we care most about are down here, the 36 in the primary factors, and we got a 42 down here in the contributing. Of course, it's really high speeds, posted 25, it's actually 35. They got 20 points up here. Down here, it topped out at 35 without excessive speeds over a certain percentage. So they got the 35 points here. I would like to note one thing. This document, not just the spreadsheet, but the whole document was not made for a major collector. Both locations here are a major collector. Jeff still wanted me to run through this just to show where we fall on it. There are houses fronting it. Of course, nowadays we would never put houses fronting a major collector, so I just wanted to kind of throw that back out there. So residential, local, commercial, local, minor collector. So it doesn't even fall within any of these guys over here. About 8 houses per 330 feet. We got a couple points there, and once again, no sidewalks. So they both meet. I have the country club circled over here because I think that's probably a good spot for possible improvements or traffic calming measures. Over here, it's much more of a collector type street. There's not as many houses fronting it down here, at least near Bear Paw. And once again, we posted it, we counted right where the speeds were adjusting between, I think it's 30 and 25, or maybe it was 35. So anyways, we can come back to this if you guys have questions, if I explained it horribly. So here's some conclusions. It did meet for the RTP at both sites. Some more comments over here. We've already removed all the I-40 signs, so that was one thing that she had mentioned in her petition. And there are striped 25-mile-per-hour markings on the roadway, right in those locations on the hill and in that what I call a ditch where we counted. Some possible options we can come up with here. I didn't have any time to do any drawings, but once again, we've got the radar feedback signs, possible circles at Edgewood, which was that intersection right closest to where we counted that down there at the 3305. But once again, I put some negatives there. We've got a T intersection, which is always weird with a little circle, and it's at the bottom of 2 hills. So possibly ice and slippage, I don't know. And then also the center island median, pushing them over, you know, from the center of the lane over to the curb line, like we're doing at the other one. That would remove parking, but that is parking on that road. I think I'm second guessing myself. And so yeah, we'd like to have some discussion on other options. And once again, I'd like to throw it out to Jeff if he has any comments or anything to add before I turn it over.
He says he's good.
Okay, perfect.
Stephanie, if I recall, the roadway width through that section is quite wide. Do you happen to know how wide it is through there?
No, but we can figure it out together pretty quickly. I'm still over there, but we can get over there quickly.
And of course, on the heels of our previous conversation related to cyclists specifically, that's why I'm asking about pavement width.
Looks like we're at about 37 lip of gutter to lip of gutter.
Okay. I appreciate the background and the information. Commissioners, questions or comments for Stephanie on this section?
Stephanie, where are you going to put the signs, the radar signs? Did you say exactly?
I did not. It's more of a discussion of if we do want to do those.
Okay.
I would probably recommend on the hills, just so it's warning you, hey, slow down, because that's probably when they're going the fastest is on both those hills. So that would be approximately, I'd say right here or even right here, or and not or somewhere on this hill as well.
We need to do something here. That is pretty fast speed for a neighborhood, and I'm pretty familiar with that road. So that's ridiculous.
I agree.
Yeah.
And we've tried these 25-mile-per-hour here, and I mean, I don't know what the speeds were before, but I really doubt they're doing anything, sadly.
They're driving too fast to see them.
Yeah, probably.
Any other comments, Commissioner Kuhn, on I think Stephanie had the radar feedback sign as an option. Do you have thoughts about, given your experience in driving out here, the traffic circle, the local traffic circle, or some of the other mitigation measures we talked about, like bump outs?
That road, I don't know if that road, I think that road is too many curves and too much to use those. I think we need to start with the radar on that one because of, the layout of it and just the hills and multiple things. I'm afraid, like Councilman Jim said last, you put a bump out on that, somebody's going to come across and hit somebody head on. And with the speeds there, I'd rather like to try radar signs before we do anything there.
Thank you for those comments. Other commissioners? Vice Chair Parks? Oh, sorry, Kate.
Sorry, had trouble getting the mute off. Yeah, I favor the radar signs to start with.
Commissioner Morley? Sorry.
Yeah, I think the radar signs are probably likely to help. I would guess there's good research behind that. I also think that there's just a lot of really awesome opportunity on this road to do some, a protected bike lane. Again, I think part of the reason we're having speeding on so many of our residential roads is we've got the parking, because this has parking on the side, right? That was shown, that people aren't utilizing, and so it makes the road feel super wide. And so is there an opportunity to do a nice protected bike lane to get people places? I think we could do really cool things. We could add landscaping bump outs in certain places and make this really nice. To me, I don't know if I feel like this is one where we need to try temporary things. I think there's a proven problem and we just need to work to design and solve instead of try the temporary things, if that's possible, if there's funding to do that, etc. Just to save the effort of doing something temporary and then coming back and doing something again. So we could definitely, I just think we could try some really cool things in this area because we wouldn't design this again, right? So we've got to do something great to fix it. I heard we wouldn't design this way again. So those are my thoughts.
I think we can circle back to more discussion and maybe provide staff some suggestions and direction for moving forward here in a moment. But what I'd like to do is we have a few members of the public that would like to share their thoughts and comments with us. And I see a handful of hands raised. I'm just going to go in order as I see them. I apologize if I didn't get them in the right order of how you raised your hand. But we'll start with Mr. Gerardo, and then we'll go to Ms. Brown.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Thank you.
Okay, great. I just wanted to first thank the commission as well as Stephanie and Mr. Miller. They did a terrific job working with me to work through this. Well, a couple of comments and then I'll pass it along. The data that you collected, Stephanie, is very reflective of the data that I collected using the radar gun provided by Sergeant James last October in 20. So I'm very pleased that we are substantiating each other and also qualifying what has been going on. Other comment to that, the last time we met, just a few days after we met, I'm sure that all of you were aware that there was a police chase that resulted, if you're looking straight down on my house, you can see 3300 right there, that resulted in an accident where my bedroom is, if you're facing the back of my house to the right, just resulted with the car landing just a few less than 100 feet away from where my family sleeps. Now, I'm not going to argue the point of a police chase, but I want to emphasize again that if you remember what Mr. Baumann showed of the number of accidents on this street, I want to coincide with what Commissioner Morley said, that this is a great opportunity that I've been stating for a long time, that we can use this road as a showcase because it's not only shows the curves, but the declines, as well as the steep grades. And moving forward, as you go past those grades and into Bear Paw, it kind of straightens out. A couple of other items and I'll move forward is that I know that Stephanie mentioned about the speed limit, there's lines that are showing the stripes that 25, they don't last very long because of the snow removal process, and those 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs that are on the road have faded. And in addition to that, there's not enough of the speed limit signs that are representative of that because they're either hidden by trees, there's more on one side heading eastbound versus ones going on the westbound. Secondly, I wanted to emphasize that we did use the radar that was provided by the police, and it did slow down the traffic. It was actually very nice to see that people said, oh, crud, I need to slow down. I need to do something. And finally, I just wanted to let you know that, yes, there are a couple of things, Stephanie, that I just wanted to point out where you were mentioning about Bear Paw. where the speed limit does change from 30 to 25. But I want to also stress to you where I think where you were collecting is that there is a drainage ditch where people naturally will slow down because they don't want to lose the front end or alignment to their vehicle. So that is something to consider when you were mentioning some of the data. And as you look through this, as I think that you move forward and you look at the major collector from this, is that recently, and there's a few other of our neighborhood members that are going to talk about this, but they're replacing the electrical lines on our street currently right now. What's interesting is that I don't know if you've had a chance to go out there, but there's a lot of markers, road markers, where very similar to the previous where you were talking about the Boulder Pointe, where they had a large swing out to go into the traffic. They've done that from Edgewood turning west onto Country Club, and people are forced to slow down. And it's kind of interesting to watch the traffic flow patterns during this construction phase as they're replacing the electrical lines in the neighborhood. So though that they have slowed down some, our observance over the weekend and what we've noticed is that, yes, they've slowed down. I know I'm running out of my 2 minutes. I'll hurry up. As they slowed down, there's also those people that were doing easily 60 or 70 over the weekend. And we do have to do something. And I'm willing to help in any way that we can to make this a showcase that we can do this. That's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience and hanging out with us for the past couple hours to get to this item. Ms. Brown.
Hi. I'm so
Hi,
happy.
I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
You can?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm so happy that you finally seem like you're going to help us. We've had also 3 accidents in our yard, one hitting our house, the edge of our house by the garage. And it's just, we live on the hill, and it's our property, our house is below the street, and they just go so fast. I wanted to say that the volume of the traffic could be more than what you even counted, because you counted it when there's not as many of the summer people up here. And they're doing a lot of, when they get up here, then they're doing a lot of construction and remodeling and, this and that. And the speed has been reduced by the construction. But my husband and I talked to the workers out there, and they said, my gosh, it's so busy out here. It's like a thoroughfare. And he said he almost got hit, like sideswiped by a truck that just zoomed by him. And I said, would you write a letter for us? He said, no, I'm from Prescott and I can't do that. But anyway, and we've had even since we've been here, and we got here in May, we're summer people too. We got here mid-May, and I'm outside, we're walking our dog, we're taking walks ourselves, and I bike. And they had a semi, we have semis that go flying, and cement trucks, so it can't stop on a coin. And it's really dangerous. And if they had a semi truck that got caught trying to make a turn, of course they were doing the construction, they had to move all the barricades that they had up for the construction so he could turn around. There was traffic backed up, and it was an empty semi. It was just like a trailer semi. And he had to make a turnaround or something like that to make the turn on Edgewood or on Country Club. I can't remember which way he was going, but it was dangerous. So I'm thankful that someone's going to help. And thank you for the people, that research that's been done. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And actually, I've got a couple of questions to ask you, and actually the same questions I'd like to ask Mr. Gerardo and Mr. Wilson, who's coming up next here. Two questions. So first question for you is, based on your observation, is on-street parking used and necessary? And then the second question for you is your observation of cyclists through here.
We have a lot more walkers, a lot of walkers. I bike, but I try not to bike on Country Club. There's no sidewalks, and it's easier if I go down Edgewood, but they speed on Edgewood too. But just it's a residential area, and it's an older area, and I just what was your first question?
And other question was about on-street parking.
Yes,
Do you see
we
it?
do use on-street parking when we have meetings at our home. I'll sometimes have a meeting or a party or something like that. And they do park on the street, but they do not park. We're at the top of the screen on the picture and to the right, more to the right. Yeah, right there, the gray roof. And so as it turns, people do not want to park, and I tell them not to park in front of our house, to park down past our house. And that seems to be safer, but some people don't even want to park there. They'll park around the corner on Edgewood or something and walk.
Would it be a reasonable trade-off to you to lose on-street parking for safety mitigation?
It depends on where it is. If we could have a little bit, because we don't have a lot of, we have a little parking in front. That's more like a turnaround, but we do also use it when we have company. But if we're having a party or we're having meetings, we can't, they'd have to park further away.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gerardo, same questions for you. And then Mr. Wilson, thanks for your patience. We'll get to your comments. I'm going to ask you the same questions as well.
Just a few, thank you. Just a few observations with that. Generally, the folks that are parking, I notice a lot of people parking on Edgewood and walking. And recently, when we were up there just a few days ago, I had to come back down for work. We heard a lot of people, there was a scream, and I asked what happened, and it was a young child that was literally pulled off the road because they were afraid to park on Country Club, but yet they found out by walking on Country Club, it was even more dangerous, and they were going up to the house just up the street. I generally don't see on-street parking as an observation. The bicyclists that I see, the stop sign between Edgewood and Country Club is a suggestion. It's never been used by cars or bicyclists, unfortunately. And the bicyclists that do go on Country Club, the comments, I will not ride on Country Club. And most of the people that do ride on Country Club, that do make it up the hill or come down the hill, or won't go again, the ones that I've spoken to. It's kind of somewhat of a difficult situation because they're always dodging. It's the only way that I can put it. And to go along with that, if you were to drive on Country Club, you will notice there's some large rocks in my yard and your large rocks in many of the yards, and those are actual barriers that have been hit. So that's the best way that I could answer that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Wilson, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'd start with the question about bicycle traffic, and I guess I'd address mostly the traffic on University Avenue. And I don't know if Stephanie's able to put that slide back up, especially that one slide where the two red stars for the future radar feedback signs would be. But, you know, not being a bicyclist, maybe I don't notice traffic, but my impression is that there's not much bicycle traffic on University. So that's all I can say. I'm sure that there's other people that could give you, you know, a more educated response. As far as parking on University, Again, there's different parking behavior on two parts of University. The east side of University, like let's say east of Majestic, east of Tombaugh, going into the development during that, the straightaway where University is mostly east and west, and it's where we've talked about the the bump out and whatever. Yeah, that's a good slide right there. All of this from Thompson, really almost going up to past Majestic, and then before it curves to the south, there's very, very little on-street parking there at all. I mean, you might see one or two cars, every couple of days. After you turn south and go more, the last 6 or 8 homes between that curve going down to, Highland Mesa, there's more on-street parking there. You could maybe see 6 to 8 cars typically, or, maybe 4 to 6 cars typically on both sides of the street. So that's the thing that I would say. When you asked an earlier member of the public, about trading on-street parking versus, and I can't remember what the caveat there was, or what the trade-off was, whether it was safety or slower speeds or whatever. My impression is that because people don't use it on the eastern portions of University, that they'd be more inclined. I hear a lot of comments about the high speed, and I think people would be, willing to do more to reduce the speeds. But that's not something that I would want to speak for, those neighbors without, really doing a serious effort to make sure that I'm getting their input. So I'm just sort of speculating, and maybe I shouldn't have even done that. But I guess that's the best way I could respond to those 2 questions.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Stephanie, do you mind panning back to the Continental area? Excellent. Right, do we have any other members of the public that would like to address the commission on this item? All right. I don't believe I see others, so I do appreciate you sharing your concerns. I appreciate all of the work that Stephanie and Jeff have done out here to look at this. I echo my fellow commissioners' concerns about speeds, and frankly, I drive this fairly often as well, and I see this as a major issue. I'm not surprised that the numbers worked out the way they did. Of course, it is always surprising when you do see the actual speed data that we've got a major problem that needs to be addressed. And I support Commissioner Kuhn's recommendation on permanent radar feedback signs. I love Commissioner Morley's ideas about this is a great opportunity. How do we find the funding to do this, the implementation, what does that look like? And I look to city staff for those recommendations and ideas and suggestions for moving forward. So it's something that we can keep on our agenda to see how we can make this into a fantastic street. So those are my comments. I'm sorry, I heard.
Yeah, I have one more question. It's
Okay.
Julie Brown. I know we've been told that you can't have speed bumps because of the ice, the plows, but why couldn't you have like temporary rubber ones, not all over, but just in a few select spots, even move them around just for the summer and fall or something like that?
Thank you for that idea. We will add that to the list of ideas. I think there might be an opportunity to do something even bigger and better. So with that, any other final thoughts or comments from the commissioners? All right, hearing none. Jeff and Stephanie, do you have clear I guess, clear recommendations from us on moving forward?
I believe we do. Radar feedback signs are a thumbs up and possibly looking into something bigger. Jeff, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, well, I just add and looking to come back and have another discussion to talk about what those bigger things might be. Not sure that we'll make it in 2 months, but we will come back.
What do you think the timing would be for the permanent radar feedback?
Good question. The last ones took, did we order them 4 months ago? And they just came in this week. So something similar, probably. They did not typically used to take that long, but you've heard about chip shortages and different things. And apparently that, there's lots of components in the radar feedback signs. And if they have them in stock, they'll be much quicker. But these took, the better part of 4 months to get through the city procurement process and the ordering. So it's on that time frame, I think would be a decent expectation at this point.
Okay. Right. Thank you, everybody. So with that, I would like to close out old business and move on to concluding general business. And as far as reports, Martin, do you have anything you'd like to share with the commission at this time related to BAC and PAC conversations? You're still on the line?
I am on the line. Just real quickly, we moved the BAC meeting from tomorrow night to next Wednesday. We just postponed it. And hopefully we'll be able to review a good draft of the bikeways plan at that meeting. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any Vice Chair Parks, any updates, BAC, PAC, or questions for Martin? I know you're actively involved in both of those.
No, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. All right, then moving on to 3B. Here's the two from commissioners and staff. Commissioner Morley, updates or anything that you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you. So we have officially kicked off the 5-year transit plan. So would love to talk about when's a good time to get feedback from the commission. Maybe the August meeting might be good timing, but we're excited to see what comes of that. In not as great news, we put out bids for the construction of the Caspar intersection, and they came out significantly over budget. And so unfortunately, we are closing the construction procurement without award and are basically abandoning the Caspar intersection project. To be determined what will happen to those grant funds. We will request to keep them in the community on other transportation projects, but unfortunately, we are not going to see that intersection come to fruition. But there are lots of great things going on. Don't let me bring you down, and love to come back on the 5-year plan project. The other thing I would just mention is the Milton Corridor Master Plan is quickly coming to an end, I will say. And there are a lot of outstanding questions to tie up in these last couple months, including what the final, if there is, or if any final opportunity for input on the planning process. So it might be interesting for the commission to reach out to ADOT and see if they want to present their findings or recommendations to us or what that process is. So those are the main items for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kuhn, any two froms?
Yeah, our year is winding down. We have graduation for Summit High School tomorrow, and we finish up with Flag High and Cocoa. They're actually each at their own schools this year. It hadn't been like that. I think we looked it up the last time that happened was like 1976. So.
Oh, gonna be busy in town.
Yep.
All right. Vice Chair Parks.
No, nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay. I know it's pretty late for you on the East Coast, so I appreciate you hanging out. Councilmember McCarthy, any two froms that you'd like to share with the commission?
No, thank you. Good meeting, though.
Thank you. And staff. Jeff, Stephanie, Martin, Rick?
I think I'm good. Good meeting. We got through a lot of stuff. It took a little extra time, but that's okay. That's what it takes sometimes.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, well, I am looking forward to the update to City Council, June 22nd. I would love for those of you that are available to participate in that as part of the introductions, and to also be there for that conversation, that dialogue. Jeff, would you please send out an invitation to the commission members for that meeting? Don't mind.
Yes, I can forward the appointment.
All right. Okay. You had a couple of items on here under the two froms, including engineering standards, roadway cross sections, staffing update. But I heard you say you were good. Is there anything you wanted to comment on that, Jeff?
I don't, we had a little bit to talk about in engineering standards, but we can definitely wait. I think you and I want to talk about letters of support a bit, but that isn't critical tonight either. Staffing update, yeah, we still can't hire anybody. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay.
On to next meeting agenda, I think, and I don't know if this is accurate anymore, but this is what I had before we started tonight.
Capital improvement plan, and now the Mountain Line 5-year. So we'll add those two, please.
I have both of those as notes. Boulder Pointe may not come back because that will be probably too soon, so that probably falls off the list. Woodland Drive, hopefully we have an update. It's kind of in the same point where Boulder Pointe is, but maybe just a couple weeks behind. Yeah, no, I think this probably holds for the most part.
Jeff, can we get an update on the roundabout, proposed roundabout on Cedar and Fourth?
Sure, at the next meeting or right now?
Yeah, no, the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, any others? Okay, with that, I would like to move to item 5 on the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh.
And a second.
Second.
Dang it.
All right. I have a feeling all those in favor. Aye.
Hey.
Hi.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you, Jeff, Stephanie, Rick, Brett, Councilmember McCarthy, Councilmember Shimoni, and my fellow commissioners. Great meeting. I'm excited about what's ahead. So have a wonderful evening. Be safe.
So I don't get a vote on if we're going to adjourn or not?
Would you like to? I mean, you can hang out here all night if you'd like.
No, I'm just trying to add a little humor.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Go. Okay.